Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 14th of June. Today, a blow to Rishi Sunak as Reform overtake the Tories in an opinion poll for the first time. Farage declares his party the official opposition.
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
Angela Rayner and Nigel Farage clash in a seven-way showdown over immigration, NHS and tax.
Penny Mordaunt dubs Labour's plans to launch a tax raid on private schools crazy, claiming it's going to push more children into the state system.
Pubs and breweries across the country demand an immediate cut in beer duty, as it's a staggering 3 times the European average.
The shipwreck of Sir Ernest Shackleton's final voyage is found off the coast of Canada 62 years after it sank.
And in the sport, see the smile on my face, the Euros are here. 51 games across the next month. I can hear my wife groaning already as I'm saying this. Host Germany against Scotland tonight in Munich, and that's at 8 p.m. In Antigua, also we have England, who beat Oman in the most one-sided T20 World Cup match in history. And in golf, after one round, Rory McIlroy leads the US Open. He was bogey-free and just 3 rounds to go.
It's not quite as chilly out there this morning. It will be a day where you'll need your umbrella handy, but you'll also need some sunglasses nearby as well. Yes, a mixture of sunshine and heavy showers. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Right, just before we kick off with all the politics of the day, and there's a lot to get through, here's something for the boys out there.
All right, go on then.
This is according to a study in the Daily Star this morning. You turn into your dad at 43, apparently, which doesn't seem very old to me.
No,
Well,
it sounds quite young, doesn't it?
That's when you become your father, according to boffins. And these are the things...
It's always boffins.
It's always
down to
boffins.
them.
These are the things you need to look out for, boys. You have your own chair, you dress for comfort, your nose and ear hair grows exponentially. Oh, God. You know where the stopcock is, and you groan when you get up off the sofa. You check the doors and lights before you're going to bed. You like to potter in the garden. You're confused by modern music. You don't care what other people think. You realise your dad was right. Yeah. You never respond to group WhatsApps. I hate group WhatsApps. You think embarrassing your children is hilarious, and a trip to the tip is a treat.
Oh, I love going to the tip.
And that's all. I'm all of these things.
Are you? So when did you turn into your dad?
Well, I'm 50, so it must be at least 7 years ago.
And do you think it was 7 years ago?
I don't.
Or do you think it's more of a recent thing?
The whole I don't care what other people think is, I think, slightly more recent. I think 45, 46. I don't care what anyone thinks of me now.
That must be liberating.
It's lovely.
I can't relate to that one.
No, you can't. I'm always telling you to have more confidence.
I know.
She lacks confidence. Ridiculous, isn't it? No, I'm all for that. Group WhatsApps. Never put me in a group WhatsApp. I've now got a thing on the phone, so if anyone tries to add me to a group, it asks my permission first.
Oh, yeah, that's very good.
And I can deny it.
You've got some control. Do you know what I think is the #1 dad thing?
What?
And tell me if you're doing this already. You've just become unclipped. Hang on. This is honestly,
what
it's
happens.
always becoming unclipped.
Thank you.
There you go. Is that better?
I'm unhinged.
Bit of give. Oh, and I'll sort that out on the break. It's when dads stand there, right, and they've got a cup of tea, and then they put their hand on their back and they just look out the garden like that.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of checking it all out. I don't really know what they're looking for.
They're just admiring their
They're just kind
terrain.
of looking at the terrain. I think that's the most dad thing ever.
Yeah.
And you don't see it in young men. It's a dad thing.
Yeah.
Are you doing that?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
What age did you start doing that?
I don't know. But do
Kind of oversee the garden.
You just oversee, and it's just nice to go, oh, yeah, this is mine.
And that's
Looking
after you've been
all
to your
right.
nice coffee machine. He's got a lovely coffee machine. So you go to there, you get your café con leche.
Cafe con leche, that's what I get, yeah.
I'm across the detail, don't worry. And then you head out into your garden and you oversee the land.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the one that strikes me, and it's when I realise my dad is right. And that actually, my mum too.
My mum's right on everything, but I already know that.
I used to think, yeah, actually, I wish I hadn't given them so much stick when I was younger, because they were right. There you go.
There you go. Let us know what you think on that one. gbnews.com/you'll say 43, is it?
43.
43, when men turn into their dads. Let us know if you can relate to that one.
Right, Nigel Farage says his party are now the party of opposition after Reform UK overtook the Conservatives in a poll for the first time.
Yes, it's a YouGov poll that was out yesterday for The Times. Reform gained 2 points to reach 19%, while the Tories sit unchanged on 18%. Labour maintain their significant lead, but again, they do see a drop in support slightly, down to 37%.
Well, it made for an interesting opening bout to last night's election debate, where 7 parties competed to win your vote.
While the Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner was asked if she would rejoin the European Union.
If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Well, the Liberal Democrats have put fixing the NHS and social care at the heart of their policies.
Our manifesto is a manifesto to save the NHS and social care. We're pledging £9 billion to invest upstream. We see on the TV all these disastrous pictures of people dying in the back of ambulances, suffering the indignity of corridor care because they can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, and that's what we want to fix.
Well, the SNP's Stephen Flynn criticised Labour's hesitations over the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
It took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, will you end arms sales to Israel?
But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Thank you.
Well, you may remember from the previous 7-way debate that the Plaid Cymru leader wasn't impressed with the main party's ambitions. And it would seem nothing's changed.
Election, you'll hear me talking a lot about ambition. Where is the ambition from either of the Westminster main parties to invest in allowing us in Wales to make the most of our natural resources through devolving the Crown Estate, allowing us to invest in transport and connectivity through giving us the billions we're owed as a result of HS2 rail in England? That's the ambition that we need. We're not hearing it from the Conservatives, and I regret we're not hearing it from...
Nigel.
And seeing his party surge in the polls, Reform UK's Nigel Farage took the Tories to task over their immigration promises.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the 5th manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
That's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
All right, let's get the thoughts of political commentators Peter Spencer and Nigel Nelson. Good to see you both this morning. Peter, can I start with you on all of this? What did you make of it? It's been quite interesting, I think, looking at this 7-way debate in the light of what we've seen over the last week and in the light of the new opinion poll last night.
The opinion poll last night was on one level hugely significant, of course, and Nigel Farage had a lovely time making this point about how he's the official opposition and so on. But behind all that is the brute reality of the British voting system. Support for the Reform Party is a little bit like the River Thames in the Middle Ages. That is to say, it is wide, but it is shallow. And our voting system says you either come first in each constituency vote or you go nowhere. And so the prospect that Nigel seemed to be sort of unfolding of the House of Commons being swamped with Reform MPs is total la-la land. That said, there's a pretty good chance, I would suggest, that he will actually get in Clacton. And when he is as an MP, he can do what he likes. And I think he will have huge heft within the Conservative Party when, assuming they do lose and lose badly, and it'll be recriminations on all sides and a redefinition of the party. And at that point, Nigel Farage will have huge heft in how they shape their new agenda.
Nigel Nelson, what do you make of it?
Well, I agree with Peter that the first past the post electoral system means that Nigel Farage doesn't get a big clutch of MPs on these kind of figures. So what this would, if this poll was translated into seats, Reform would come back with 5 MPs. The Tories are pretty dire. They'd end up with just over 70, only a little ahead of the Lib Dems. So it's kind of a toss-up whether the Lib Dems or the Tories would be the official opposition. I think we need to be a little bit cautious at this stage to make sure this poll isn't an outlier. If it turns out that other polls confirm this finding and keep Reform ahead, especially if they get even further ahead, then this is a really significant moment during the election.
But it should. I mean, to both of you, but Peter first. I mean, this has got to drive the other parties to an extent, hasn't it? It shows, I mean, particularly the Tories, it shows a huge amount of discontent in how the big parties are currently handling things, Peter, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the level of disillusion with politicians in general is massive, and there are predictions that the turnout in the election will be massively down on normal times, because there is that sense of collective apathy and, oh, well, you know, the country's gone to the dogs and so on. But at the same time, after the election, there will be this reckoning within the Conservative Party, and Nigel Farage's his central beef about immigration will play very big within Conservative deliberations about how they should frame themselves for future elections. And of course, there is the question, you know, Nigel Farage likes to hope that he can somehow absorb the Conservative Party under his wing. The alternative would be, of course, that he actually switches party after the election and becomes leader of the Conservative Party. There's an awful lot of people on the hard right of the Conservative Party who wouldn't mind that one little bit.
Nigel Nelson, is that something that you predict could happen? So not this election, but the one after, we could see a pact between Reform and the Tories, which could be led by Nigel Farage?
Yes, you could. Anything is possible in politics. I mean, I think that it rather depends on the makeup of the Conservative Party after the election. So if you end up returning an awful lot of the moderate One Nation Tories, there's no way they're going to do any deals with Nigel Farage. However, if the right wing comes back and you get a right wing leader, I mean, say Suella Braverman, who says she would welcome Nigel Farage into the Tory party, then that could change. What is most likely to happen, even if the Tories do come back with very few MPs, is most of them will probably be moderates. The area where the Tories are most at risk are in the red wall seats, where you do have a lot of MPs from the right.
OK, look, we're going to leave it there with both of you for the time being. But Peter, Nigel, thanks very much indeed. It just goes to show there's actually everything to play for at the moment. I mean, absolutely fascinating with Reform UK coming second. We know they've been nipping at the heels of the Tories, but to overtake the Tories, I mean, it's only in one poll, but nevertheless, it's a hugely significant moment. We mentioned that Nigel Farage is standing in Clacton, so let's run through the constituency candidates at the moment. We have Yovan Owusu-Nepal standing for the Labour Party.
Giles Watling for the Conservative Party.
Matthew Bensalem for the Liberal Democrats.
Nigel Farage for Reform UK.
Natasha Osborne for the Green Party.
Craig Jameson for Climate Party.
Tony Mack, who's an independent.
Tassos Papanastasiou for the Heritage Party.
And Andrew Pemberton for UKIP.
Well, throughout the election campaign, we will be hearing from people across the United Kingdom, because this is GB News and it is about the people of Great Britain, isn't it?
Well, it is. And issues, of course, like NHS waiting lists, the impact of immigration, cost of living crisis, crime and policing. Our reporters have been to meet voters from all 4 nations, and we're hearing from them regularly before polling day. So today, It's time to talk to John from East Yorkshire.
My name's John Dimberline. I'm from Withensea in East Yorkshire and I'm aged 61. I've been in business for a lot of years, probably 40 plus years. We're involved in property maintenance, property rentals. I think that immigration needs to be better controlled. The concern for me is the criminal element. It's the gangs, it's the trafficking, it's the human trafficking that goes on. One of the things that concerns me, and it's a historic thing really, is that when you look back over the wars that this country has fought, and many people, many of our ancestors, all our ancestors have given their lives, laid down their lives for this country, I think they would be turning in their graves to see the way that the country is not being invaded by the back door, but is losing what we or I consider to be traditional core British values. I've never really been a big politically motivated person. I've tended to not really bother. I've cracked on with business and thought, well, whoever gets in, gets in. It's as I've got older that I would be more inclined to vote. And my leanings now, I just don't see that I could vote Conservative. And I haven't voted for him for many years. And if I was going to lean any particular way, I think I'd try and find something a bit more common sense based that I mentioned earlier. So I'd probably lean towards the new Reform Party.
Now, as you may have heard over the course of this election, Labour are wanting to revoke private schools' charitable status and impose VAT on them. That's proving to be quite a controversial issue. As you know, it came up in the debate last night. Love to know what you think about that, actually, this morning. gbnews.com/yoursay. Is it something which, I mean, should we be looking at funding state education better, making state education the universal education in this country rather than funding private schools? Or should people have that choice and therefore not be used, not use this as a sort of political football, if you like?
I mean, the Labour Party would say that the money that they make on VAT on private school fees, they're going to pump into the state school system. But this is what we heard from Emily Thornberry the other day, didn't we? That there's going to be larger class sizes in state schools as a result of obviously parents pulling their children out of private schools. But there does seem to be a bit of confusion in the Labour ranks about that one.
Yeah, let's get the thoughts of a principal of a performing arts private school, Simon Larter-Evans, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. How concerned are you? Because, I mean, in all of this, isn't there a sense that if you have to add VAT onto your fees, well, a lot of your students must have parents who can afford for them to be there, therefore they can afford to pay VAT?
Well, thank you ever so much for having me on the programme. If I put us into a little bit of context, Tring Park School for the Performing Arts is a highly specialised vocational arts school, and we take young people on talent from whatever background they come from. There's a great myth that there's a huge amount of money swilling around in the system. And the concern that we have is that VAT is by nature a regressive tax, so it hits those least wealthy hardest first. In our case, 46% of our parents have some kind of financial support from us in order to afford to be able to come to a performing arts school, which feeds an economic system that the Labour Party also wants to support. So our concern is that we've got these two policies bashing up against each other. One has the potential to damage the other. And let's look at the numbers. 1.6 million, well, it's the number on the side of the bus, isn't it? Because it's a number based on an economic model. And when you turn economic models into fact, then I think we're into some really tricky ground. And so there's a great deal of concern that this may not even make the money that they're expecting and will do a huge amount of damage on the way through.
How do you fear, if this does come in, if we do see a Labour government, how do you fear that the VAT on private school fees will impact your students?
Well, we don't know the detail yet. The manifesto, there's many commentators have said the manifesto was disappointingly thin on detail. So it's really hard to be able to model any kind of strategic change that we might need to make. But the impact is there for all to see. 70% of our parents wouldn't ordinarily choose to go to independent schools. They're here with us because we're a vocational arts school. So I think people can join the dots for themselves. It will do damage.
There are, I mean, sort of state schools that do, they might not be quite as specialised as yours, but they do specialise in, you know, the technology schools or art schools or whatever. So that is available in the state system. I mean, the argument is, I guess, you know, whatever needs to be done to fund those schools for the majority is what matters.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that point, and I agree that all children must have access to the arts in some form. Where we sit is in a very small number, and we're recognised by the DfE already as being a very small number of music, dance and drama schools that are at the very pinnacle of very, very highly specialised technical training that goes straight into the industry. 80% of the children that come to these schools actually end up in the arts in some way, or through further education. But that's absolutely right. There has to be access to all. Where we sit on the talent pipeline is at the sort of tail end of that, where young people have discovered their talent is discovered in other sectors, and they land with us just at that point before they go into the industry. So what the VAT policy has the risk of doing is to cut off that sort of last super training that young people really need. I'd love more talent to come through. There's no shortage of great dancers, actors, singers and musicians, but the cost is huge. So if you think about schools like ours, and yes, there is some provision in the state section, I'd love to see more of it, the costs are enormous. We're running 2 schools. We have 15 studios as alongside an excellent academic programme. So, you know, we've got twice as many teachers as any other normal setting. That's not being replicated in the state sector. And there's good reason for that. It's very, very expensive to do.
OK, Principal Simon Larter-Evans, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Well, it's 6:22. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
US President Joe Biden and Ukraine's President Zelensky have signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement aimed at bolstering Ukraine's defence against Russian invaders. The historic agreement will expand intelligence sharing, continue to train Ukrainian troops and invest in Ukraine's industrial base. Well, it comes as all G7 countries agree to continue funding a loan package for Ukraine worth nearly £40 billion, which will use interest raised from frozen Russian assets.
The family of Harry Dunn have accused the US government of obstructing their son's inquest. The teenager was killed in 2019 when his motorcycle collided with a car driving on the wrong side of the road. Ansa Koulas, who was an employee of the US government, wasn't present at the inquest, nor were there any representatives of the US Embassy. Harry's mum says her son's memory has been disrespected.
A Conservative candidate in the general election says he received a suspicious parcel at his constituency office today, leading to bomb disposal specialists being called in. Sir Jeremy Quinn, an ex-Defence Minister and Conservative candidate for the Horsham constituency, received the package at his Sussex office. Bomb disposal experts were called in to investigate. The force said the presence of the office was stood down this evening after the package was confirmed to be safe, although the force is investigating whether an offence has been committed.
All right, should we see what the weather's going to do for you? Don't hold your breath. Here's Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling very fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, we'd like to say a massive congratulations to John from West Yorkshire, who we can tell you won that £20,000 in tax-free cash in our last Great British giveaway. Here's the moment we called him.
So, John, are you sitting down?
I'm on the bench in the garden.
I'm probably going to make your day. You've won £20,000.
Yes, you see, that is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic. You know, bearing in mind that when you're a pensioner, you're sort of sometimes cash poor, and so we really have had to actually tighten our belts. So actually this will mean that, I won't say we'll go on holiday, although it keeps on banging on about going on holiday.
A little holiday.
But a little holiday maybe, I think, possibly, yes, why not? Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
See, John's my sort of man.
Why?
You've won £20,000. Yes.
It's very British, isn't it?
Yes, thank you. Jolly
Yes,
good.
sounds good to me.
Thanks for calling.
I'll take that, thank you.
Good on you,
Very
John.
good. Well, that could be you, because there is now a new chance to win £15,000 in cash and some summer treats in there as well. Here's all the details that you need.
It's our Summer Spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Do stay with us. Paul Coit is going to be here shortly to tell us what to look out for as the 2024 Euros begins today.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour, Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We mentioned the Horsham constituency a little bit earlier on, so I just want to run you through the candidates because, frankly, it's what we've got to do in this election period. In Horsham, Paul Abbott is standing for the Social Democratic Party, Jim Duggan for the Peace Party, James Michael Field for the Labour Party, Hugo Miller for Reform UK, John Milne from the Liberal Democrats, Jeremy Quinn for the Conservative and Unionist Party, and Catherine Mary Moss for the Green Party. Oh, Catherine Moss.
Do you know Catherine Moss?
No, but it's quite a good name for
Oh,
a
you
Green,
like
for,
that.
for a Green Party candidate, isn't
Well,
it?
yes, it's very
There you
fitting,
go,
isn't
it's
it?
fitting.
Can I read a view? Do we have time?
Yes.
From John, who says, I'm working class. I sent my kids to mainstream schools. But if people choose to send their kids to private schools, that's for them and it should be their choice. This is all going to come crashing down when they can't find school places for these kids that drop out of private school. And by not being in the public sector, they are not costing the British taxpayer monthly. Why should I pay for someone's kid to have breakfast if they're earning over 100 grand? When I give my son breakfast before he goes to school and I earn under £20,000 a year. About Labour's policy for free breakfasts in schools and also the VAT raid on private school fees.
But then there's a question to be asked as to why private schools, which are a business, why are they exempt from paying VAT? Why should they be exempt? We're not exempt from anything from paying it, are we? So why should they be exempt from paying it? That's the argument. It's a fair argument to have.
Yeah, no, it is.
Whether you agree with it or not.
It is dividing people, though. Nick says, Stephen and Ellie, people who send their children to private school are paying twice. So if parents have to withdraw their children from the private school, they are, in fact, just putting more pressure on the state system. So the funding from the VAT is lost. Well, do keep those views coming in. We are speaking to Wes Streeting from the Labour Party a little bit later on in the programme, so we will, of course, put all of this to him.
We will indeed. Right, let's get a check on all the sport because it's a very, very big day today. Paul Coit.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Due to broadcasting rules, if I mention one country in the Euros...
You've got to mention them all.
I have to mention them all. So
Yes, you do.
I hope you're prepared for that. 51 games, all begins today, 8 p.m.
51?
51 games! There's going to
Wow.
be 3 tomorrow, there's 1 today, 3 on Sunday, there's 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And I'm going to try and see as many as I possibly can.
You're going to be exhausted.
I will be.
So it's all happening in München today.
It's München today. Yeah, it's going to be Scotland versus Germany. So Germany, who are the hosts, of course, and Scotland, who, by the way, have never got out of a group stage. By the way, that man there, see him celebrate. He looks very happy with himself, doesn't he? I'll tell you the reason. He's just walked from Glasgow to Munich.
Has he? Oh, good on him.
It's not the fact that I think he couldn't get the transport. It's because he did it raising money for charity.
Good on him.
It's taken him 41 days. Craig Ferguson, there he is. But the thing is, it's all very well getting there, but Craig, how are you going to get back again? I don't know whether he's going to...
Surely he's booked a flight.
I would kind of hope so. But there we are. There's all the Scottish fans. Most of them are thinking, I have no idea who he is, but I'm going to have a great time with him. There we are. Look at that. They're in the middle of Munich. He's looking very happy. He's got to save all his excitement, though, for tonight. Hopefully, he's got a ticket for the game, because it is going to be a huge match tonight.
Yeah, it is. What about... I mean, I know, obviously, Germany's a sort of traditionally bigger and better side, right?
That's right.
Try to be diplomatic.
However,
would agree host nations on a first night don't always do that well, do they?
That's true. I mean, and it's often favourites struggle at the first hurdle, but because it's the group stage, you know, it will then start to unravel. So we'll see. So Scotland have got a good chance. They haven't done well over the last few games, but with qualifying, they did really well. They'd beaten Spain early on, and they do have a good chance. It's going to be one of these games where Germany are going to have most of the ball. Everybody's agreed with that, and it's a matter of Scotland making the most of it when they do get it. Now, Andy Robertson plays for Liverpool, fine winger and one of Scotland's finest players. He was interviewed yesterday. This is what he had to say about playing in the Euros anyway.
We know that these games are close and we know how quickly the tournament can go by you, and it's important that we show up to our maximum, and if we do that, then we believe we can create a bit of history, but we know we have to be at our best to do that. And tomorrow night we're playing an exceptional team full of quality in front of their home fans, and we know it doesn't get much more difficult than that, but it's a challenge that we're excited for. You know, there's no real pressure on us, there's no real expectation probably from the outside world, but you know, we expect a lot from ourselves.
You know what? I do smile because there's nothing really you can say. It's always going to be well, obviously we're going to be underdogs. We're going to try our best. We'll see what we can do. Hopefully, if we get the ball, we'll do our best. We're hoping to make history. And if we score a goal, then hopefully we'll win and make the country proud.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, what else can you say?
I know. But the thing is, that's the questions they get asked. Yeah. How do you think it's going to go tonight? But anyway, we wish them well. So it is a huge game. And as I started mentioning there before we saw the fans, is that Scotland have never got out of a group stage of a major tournament, ever. They've never got to the knockout. So there is a chance. You know, there's Hungary and Switzerland, which they could beat either of those, get a result against Germany tonight. Who knows? Who knows?
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Should we look at the US Open?
Yeah, you want to do a little bit of the golf now?
Yeah.
Rory McIlroy, great start for Rory.
Well, behind every good man.
Yes. No, well,
yes, very good.
It wouldn't have been last week, but then this week is so much better this week. I wonder what that is. Pinehurst, North Carolina, joint leader, 5 under. So he scored a 65 yesterday, along with Patrick Cantlay. It was a bogey-free round. For those that do not know, and there is a possibility that some will not know what a bogey is, that is over par. So if it's a par 4 and you score a 4, that's a par. If you get a 3, then that's a birdie. Do you follow me? And then if it's 1 over, that's a bogey. So, I know it's one of those things where sports people talk about bogeys and birdies, but not everybody would understand what that means. So that's what a bogey is. And it just to show how important it is, there's been 1,368 rounds at Pinehurst in the US Open in the past, and only, well, how many do you think have been bogey-free? Out of the 1,368 rounds of the US Open that have been played at this course, how many rounds have been without a bogey like Rory?
700.
700. Try 7.
Oh, 7.
And then it's 5. But, you know...
5?
Yeah, only 5.
Oh.
It is incredible. It just shows what a great performance it was from Rory yesterday. Yeah. You know what? It's not a bad guess.
Very good.
Because you would have guessed 700. That's what you would have thought.
She did well.
That's what you would have thought.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
The cricket, T20?
T20, England broke a record yesterday.
Did they?
It was the quickest... Well, I mean, it was probably the biggest demolition there's ever been in a T20. We were talking about all the permutations that England, who are the current holders, this is in the Caribbean, they played Oman. I mean, with respect, it was Oman. They were out for 47 runs. England scored 50 for 2 in 19 balls. It was all over. 19 balls, 3.1 overs, and then they're through. And then, well, I say they're through. They've got another game to play. So that's at the weekend. and they will qualify if they beat Namibia and Australia beat Scotland.
Right. Wow.
Can I ask you a question? Am I getting a little technical today? I feel as if I'm being terribly technical.
Technical's good.
Technical's okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to go less technical?
Let's go less technical.
Less technical.
Psychic animals.
Predictions for the Euros. Now, it drives me crazy. They always get some animal that is going to say, I've got a psychic animal.
Yeah.
And there was Paul the octopus a few years ago. How about the orangutan from Dortmund Zoo?
Aww.
Walter, the oracle right there. He is, Walter. How old do you reckon Walter is?
I think he's
18.
35 years.
Oh.
Did he not see? Look closer, can't you see? Surely he's in his 30s.
Oh.
Anyway, he has
football.
two buckets, one with a Scotland scarf, one with a Germany scarf. Is Walter's prediction going to be all bad? Well, we'll soon find out.
How many cameras are
What's he
there?
going to go for, Walter? He's going for the German bucket. Now, he's predicted Champions League, he's predicted Bundesliga, but apparently there's exactly the same amount of food in both buckets. He went for the German one, so therefore Walter, unfortunately, has predicted Germany to beat Scotland.
Oh,
today.
Walter, you've let the side down.
You know what? Orangutans don't know what they're talking about when it comes to football.
I don't know.
When it comes to cricket, they're pretty good. Football, no idea.
Yeah, well, look, I hope you're right. Paul, thank you.
Walter.
I predict you'll be back.
I predict I will be back, but maybe not with Walter.
No.
You know what? I'm going to have you make your predictions because I've got a little thing that I'm going to go through.
We need to do a sweepstake in the office. I think
you know what? We should
that.
do that. Yeah, we should do that.
I think you should organise that.
OK, I'll start cutting those up.
OK, thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Brilliant.
Thank you, Paul Coit. Stay with us. Still to come, Lynn May and Mike Buckley will be here to go through the papers with us. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M65 in Lancashire, the eastbound entry slip roads closed at junction 5 at Guide for emergency repairs. On the M40 in Buckinghamshire, there's a lane closed northbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 5 from High Wycombe to Stokenchurch. On the M4 in London, the inside lane's closed westbound where a lorry's broken down just off the junction 2 at Brentford, causing queues for about a mile towards there. The M25 from Essex into Kent is partly blocked clockwise where a car's overturned on the QE2 bridge with queues from junction 30 for the A13. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 again today because of roadworks. On the M23 in West Sussex, there's a lane closed where a car's broken down on the northbound exit at junction 9 at Gatwick Airport. And in East Sussex, the A22 is partly blocked by an accident at the Bowship roundabout near Helsham. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Tens of thousands of British troops joined Allied nations storming the beaches of Normandy.
D-Day opened the long-awaited second front, of course, helping to liberate France from Nazi rule. So this isn't just a commemoration, is it, of the history, Cameron? It's very much a royal event.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because as we said earlier, the king, and by extension the royal family, has an incredibly important relationship with the armed forces. The king is Colonel-in-Chief, the head of the armed forces, so he knows the sacrifices that these people make. And his grandfather, of course, was monarch during World War II, and he spoke of his grandfather's frustration that he couldn't go across to Normandy on D-Day itself because it was far too dangerous. The British government wouldn't let him. Similarly with Churchill as well. But what he would have done is heard the stories from his grandfather and also his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. So the king and the queen heard all these harrowing stories. And I think with all of that in mind, when we saw them yesterday in Portsmouth, I think the emotion perhaps overwhelmed the Queen, as we've seen on the front pages this morning. The King looked visibly moved as well. He gave a very heartfelt speech.
And the King and the Queen during the war, Cameron, were incredibly important part of it because there was a suggestion that the Queen and her children, which had been Princess Margaret and the future Queen, should be moved to Canada, to live in Canada during the war to protect them. And she said, I go where my husband goes. So she stayed in Britain. They stayed in Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace took bombs during the Blitz. There was the famous moment when she went to the East End and said, I can now look you in the eye because the palace had taken bombs too. And the King's broadcasts, they were incredibly important to keep the British morale going.
They absolutely were, and the King did eventually go and visit the Normandy beaches around 10 days after.
The People's Channel.
Lots of you getting in touch this morning. Just want to mention TV debates.
Oh, yes.
Because obviously we're covering all the debates that happen. Jay Marshall says, I pay good money to see Nigel Farage with Sunak and Starmer in a TV debate. Come on, GB News, get it on. It's not actually up to us, you know. We try, you sort of approach these people and say, let's do a debate, It's getting them on board is not easy. And certainly, can you imagine Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer agreeing to a debate with Nigel Farage? Isn't going to happen. So it's not that it wouldn't be good telly and it be interesting. Would they agree to do it? Not a chance.
No.
So there you go. So it's not that they're not trying, it's just they won't do it.
And about becoming your dad, because you shared a story earlier. I've got one, I've just read it over your shoulder. Edward Bunch says, I'm 70 and I'm still not my dad. He retired at 65 as a machinist, but your dad, says Edward, was still working his own painting business at his age.
Oh.
So there you go.
Oh, well, there you go. Right, let's look at the papers. Telegraph says Reform UK has overtaken the Conservatives in a YouGov poll.
The Mail leads with Britain being warned to brace for significant tax increases if Labour wins the election.
Guardian has Sir Keir Starmer vowing to fix Britain's broken public services.
The Times leads with Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer facing scrutiny over his economic policies.
And the Mirror highlights Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to inspire hope through the Labour manifesto.
Well, joining us now to go through the papers is former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Lynn May. Very good morning to you both. Lynn, let's start with you, shall we? And the story on most of the front pages is that Reform has overtaken the Tories for the very first time in this poll.
Yeah, so we suspected this would happen. As soon as Nigel decided to become the leader, all systems go. People have now felt that they can actually go for a party that represents them as opposed to this wishy-washy Conservative party that has gone more to the left or is no longer centre-right. Now, YouGov is supposed to be the most credible poll, according to many, and Reform are now at 18, which is 1 point ahead of the Conservatives. And I just think, personally, I do like Nigel Farage. I do think he's a brilliant front man. However, what lets me down about Nigel Farage is he seems to always come out when it's lights, camera, action. But when it's not so fancy, he seems to disappear again. But what Reform is doing, what Nigel Farage is doing, he's speaking to the common man. He's speaking to the smaller business. He's speaking to all of those Conservative voters that have felt left behind when we talk about immigration, when we talk about growth, when we talk about those essential things. For example, even when it comes to young people, you will not be taxed under Reform until you start making £20,000. Now, that's incredible. Like, loads of people on low wages want to hear about that. Now, this is the thing. Is he just saying things because they know that they will not actually really have any MPs? And it's easy to make promises when you're not going to be a real opposition. But according to him, they are now going to be the opposition.
What do you make of it, Mike?
Well, it's storm in a teacup, basically. I mean, everybody says, and they're right, don't focus in on one poll, look at the bigger picture. I was just looking at polls that have come out over the last few days. In every single poll other than this one, the Conservatives have been ahead sometimes very consistently. I mean, YouGov had another poll out for some reason yesterday that had the Conservatives ahead. And looking at polls from other companies, they've had Conservative leads of up to 15 points over Reform. So I really wouldn't get overexcited about this one poll. If a week from now there've been a succession of polls saying Reform ahead, we can agree that that's probably where the public are. But at the moment, it just isn't where the public are. And we know for a fact, after this election, either Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak is going to be Prime Minister. It isn't going to be Nigel Farage. He may well not win his seat. Even if he does, they won't win any more seats. This election is not about reform.
But I tell you what is, and I've never been one who's particularly gone down the PR route. But when you look at something like this, where pretty much it's going to be, it looks like it could be neck and neck with the Tories and Reform. And yet at the end of this election process, you could well have Reform with a couple of seats, if that, and the Tories on, even if they did really badly, 60, 70, 80. The system, that system can't be right, can it?
Well, to be honest, I was quite surprised the other day because I did see the results of, again, it was just one poll, but saying that half the public are now against first past the post, which I think is staggering because we have not been having a public conversation about the fact that we have put first past the post. Other systems are available. Most countries in Europe, indeed, have some form of proportional representation. But the public seem to be getting there by their own thoughts. However, it's not Labour policy, it's not Conservative policy to ditch first past the post and go for PR. But maybe this is a debate that's going to open up because you're right. You have this election, but Labour, of course, is far ahead in the polls. But the way that first past the post works, because Labour's so far ahead, they will end up with way more MPs than their proportionality would suggest. So, who knows?
I would like to see PR. I think there's so many people that just are not going to come out. We're going to be really, I'm not even going to say shocked, but the numbers I think are going to be very low. And that's because people feel hopeless. They feel like, what is the actual point of voting when my voice is not heard? And it empowers almost this two-party system with no one else having a look in. And that's why I believe that when we look at the two parties, they're not that dissimilar. You know?
Well, it's just interesting because
that.
Lynn said people don't have hope. The Mirror this morning, Mike, saying the Labour Party will give people hope.
They will. I don't know if you watched...
woolly headline.
I don't know if you had time to watch the manifesto launch of the Labour Party yesterday, and we were just saying before we came on, no surprises in there in terms of party policy. I think everything in there had been pre-announced, or pre-announced at least in, the kind of big picture without the detail, if you like. But what did come across, partly because they had people speaking about their real lives, most notably the poor gentleman who, it took him 100 days to get a diagnosis for cancer and much longer than that for treatment, and he is now terminally ill. Had he been identified, and treated earlier, he may well have survived. And there'll be hundreds and probably thousands of people in the country like that because the Conservatives have made such a mess of managing the health service for the last 14 years. But the other thing that came across was that Labour has got a clear plan to move this country forward. It is qualified because they're being realistic about the fact that public finances are in such a mess after 14 years of Conservative mismanagement. But there is a plan there to restore the NHS. There is a plan there to get growth. There is a plan there to restore public services, to improve wages, job opportunities, education and training, to improve people's lives. So this, for the first time in a long time, people in this country can have real hope because there will be a government that actually wants to improve their lives instead of just infight and argue about immigration.
The problem I was saying before, it's about there's not much difference between the two parties. What about...
It's huge difference.
I always think that the Labour Party is supposed to be centre-left, but it's like they've completely forgotten, the people on the left. If we look at bankers, there's no cap for that, but there's cap for child benefit. So many people who initially voted for Labour want to see those considered, those socialist policies considered. If we look at the launch of the manifesto, it was, according to a commentator, right-wing businessman Richard Walker, who actually wanted to be an MP under Liz Truss. So what we're seeing here now is those who are more on the left of the party have been forgotten, and now Keir's trying to grab the sort of centre-right. And don't you think that that completely disenfranchises all of the original Labour voters?
No, I don't. And I think the key point you made there is that Labour is a centre-left party, but it is not a far-left party. I mean, in 2019, Labour was not electable because the programme that Jeremy Corbyn put forward, which was very left-wing, wasn't realistic, and the public could see that, and they weren't going to vote for it. I mean, it was not realistic at all. I mean, the tax and spend implications of a Corbyn government would have been catastrophic for the economy, just as Liz Truss's budget was catastrophic.
All right, here's
from a different angle.
Here's a question for you, similar to what Keir Starmer got the other night. On that, did you still go out and campaign for a Labour vote?
In 2019? Yeah, I did. Because I knew that Boris Johnson would be a disaster.
How can you do that saying, well, Jeremy Corbyn, it would have been catastrophic for the country?
Because I knew he wouldn't win, but I wanted to get enough Labour MPs to be an effective opposition, which is what we did. They ended up with 203 MPs, which is way more than the Conservatives are going to get this time.
But then you say there's a clear plan, and they keep on having this whole strapline of the party of growth. I've not seen anything in there about real small businesses. I've seen lots of closing the loopholes, cracking down on tax evasion, cracking down on tax avoidance. I wouldn't say that that is the party of growth. We need to see some real growth. What is the plan for real growth?
Just in 10 seconds.
Well, they're going to reform planning rules so that we'll be able to build. And I know for a fact that Johnny Reynolds is a friend of mine who's the Shadow Business Minister. I know he spent a lot of time with big business and small and medium enterprises working at what they need to be able to grow, employ more people and pay better wages.
OK. Mike Buckley, Lynn May, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Oh, well, it's all getting bit heated, but that's good. Gets us excited about politics. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
Let's have a look at the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M4 west of London, the inside lane's closed westbound, where a lorry's broken down just after junction 2 at Brentford, causing queues for around a mile towards there. The M11 in Essex is partly blocked northbound just after junction 6 for the M25. It's slow towards and past there. And on the M25 from Essex into Kent, it's down to 2 out of 4 lanes clockwise, where a car's overturned on the QE2 bridge, with queues back beyond junction 30 for the A13. There are queues too on the A13 towards there, back past Grays. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Also in Kent, Old Thanet Way in Herne Bay is closed for an investigation. In East Sussex, the A267 is blocked by an accident off North Street at Hellingline, north of Hailsham, causing delays. And nearby, the A22 is partly blocked by an accident at the Bowship roundabout near Hailsham. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock, Friday, the 14th of June. Today, a blow to Rishi Sunak as Reform overtake the Tories in an opinion poll for the first time ever. Nigel Farage declares his party the official opposition.
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
Penny Mordaunt, Angela Rayner and Nigel Farage clash in a seven-way showdown over immigration, the NHS and tax.
Well, Penny Mordaunt dubs Labour's plan to launch a tax rate on private schools as crazy, claiming it will push more children into the state system.
Pubs and breweries across the country demand an immediate cut in beer duty, as it's a staggering 3 times the European average.
The shipwreck of Sir Ernest Shackleton's final voyage is found off the coast of Canada.
And in the sport, 29 days, 24 nations, 51 games, and millions of broken dreams. I'm just preparing myself for losing to Germany on penalties. Euro 24 kicks off in Munich tonight with Germany against Scotland. In golf, Rory McIlroy's got off to a great start at the US Open. 5 under, he's currently joint leader after 1 round. And in the T20 World Cup, in cricket, England take just 19 balls to thrash Oman.
It's not quite as chilly out there this morning. It will be a day where you'll need your umbrella handy, but you'll also need some sunglasses nearby as well. Yes, a mixture of sunshine and heavy showers. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Loads of you getting in touch this morning. Let me pull it up. This one, it's interesting because Mike Buckley, who we got on doing the papers this morning, came out with a very similar line to Keir Starmer in that head-to-head. It wasn't a head-to-head, was it? The debate on Sky News the other night about Jeremy Corbyn and campaigning in 2019. They all backed Corbyn, says Sylvia Doherty, but they knew he wouldn't get in. Because that's what they're saying. Well, we supported the party, but we knew he wasn't going to win. So what if he had won, says Sylvia? Would they have got rid of him?
I know.
And Jeff Smith coming up with something very similar. Morning to you, Jeff. It's an interesting ploy. I suppose if you're a dyed-in-the-wool party supporter, you're going to support that party come what may at a general election, aren't you?
Mm.
But nevertheless, it doesn't wash well with people to say, well, he would have been a disaster, but I still campaigned for him, but he wasn't going to win.
Jane Rowe has been in touch saying, after waiting 2 years for a school space, I sent my daughter to a private school. We live in a city and we're happy for any school available anywhere in the city. All education should be VAT-free, even though they are businesses. Private schools, universities, even open universities are VAT-free. They are all businesses too, she says. John Jones says, I just wonder what treasures Labour has in store for us. And that is reflected over many of the papers this morning, actually. The front page of The Times, a conspiracy of silence on cuts and higher taxes, suggesting that perhaps there's a lack of detail with Labour's spending plans.
Yes, however, it's been spelt out very clearly, no tax rises for working people. Well, that's the caveat, isn't it? But no increase in VAT, no increase in national insurance, no increase in...
income tax.
Income tax, thank you very much indeed, that's the important one. But then it's not a tax rise on private schools, is it? It's the removal of a tax exemption. But are we going to see things on on pensions? Are we going to see things on council tax? But then again,
capital gains. Yeah,
capital gains. Yeah, but they've not. But they've also said they want to be a party of growth and wealth. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But then again, can you expect a party to lay out exactly what's going to happen fiscally over the next 5 years?
Well, they say that they're not in the Treasury, so they don't know exactly the lay of the land until, of course, when they get into government. And Sir Keir Starmer, as you heard at the manifesto launch, said everything in their plan is fully costed, fully budgeted for.
Yeah.
But some economists today in the papers are saying otherwise.
It's whether you believe it and whether you can make it out. I've actually been looking at... There isn't a manifesto for the Reform Party. They call it a contract. And it's a work in progress at the moment for them. They've not actually sort of released the absolute final version. But looking at their funding this morning online, and hopefully we're going to talk to Richard Tice in a few minutes. Now, I can't make head nor tail of it.
Oh.
It's numbers on a page. Now, if these numbers are realistic or not, I mean, I don't know. There's so much with these parties you've got to take on trust, isn't there? Because how do you know if, we can raise all this extra money and, 25 billion, a total extra growth assumption, 10 billion per annum of extra tax revenues, says Reform UK. I don't know if that's realistic or not. I haven't got a clue. Do you? So a lot of it's just got to be taken on trust.
Well, trust's at the heart of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let us know what you think, gbnews.com/you'll say. Hopefully we're going to be talking to Richard Tice in a few minutes' time.
Yes.
So we'll put that to him.
We will put it to him, and that's all because Nigel Farage says that Reform UK are now the official opposition after they overtook the Conservatives in a poll for the first time.
Yes, in that YouGov poll for The Times yesterday, Reform gained 2 points to reach 19%. Tories sit unchanged at 18%. Labour have seen a slight drop in support, according to that poll, down to 37%.
Well, it made for an interesting opening to last night's election debate, where 7 parties competed to win your vote.
Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner was asked if she would rejoin the European Union.
If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
The Liberal Democrats have put fixing the NHS and social care at the heart of their policies.
Our manifesto is a manifesto to save the NHS and social care. We're pledging £9 billion to invest upstream. We see on the TV all these disastrous pictures of people dying in the back of ambulances, suffering the indignity of corridor care because they can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, and that's what we want to fix.
And the SNP's Stephen Flynn criticised Labour's hesitations over the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
It took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, will you end arms sales to Israel?
But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Thank you.
Well, you may remember from the previous 7-way debate that Plaid Cymru wasn't impressed with the main party's ambitions, and it would seem nothing's changed.
Election, you'll hear me talking a lot about ambition. Where is the ambition from either of the Westminster main parties to invest in allowing us in Wales to make the most of our natural resources through devolving the Crown Estate, allowing us to invest in transport and connectivity through giving us the billions we're owed as a result of HS2 rail in England? That's the ambition that we need. We're not hearing it from the Conservatives, and I regret we're not hearing it from
Nigel. Well, the Greens' Carla Denyer says immigration isn't the problem. It's government failure to invest that causes issues.
I think it's shameful when some politicians scapegoat the people who become our neighbours, our friends, our colleagues, to distract from their chronic underinvestment in public services. The solution isn't scapegoating or pulling up the drawbridge. The solution is investing in our communities to make sure everyone has access to the services they need.
Well, after seeing his party surge in the polls, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, took the Tories to task over immigration.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
That's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
Well, let's speak now to our political commentator, Nigel Nelson, this morning. Morning to you, Nigel. I just wanted to pick you up on that last clip that we just heard there. Penny Mordaunt, Nigel Farage was asking, why should anyone trust the Tories on immigration? And she says, well, it's because of what did she just say? That's just totally lost my mind.
The record of the Prime Minister.
The record of the Prime Minister. And there was laughter from the audience. What did you make of that?
Well, I'm not surprised, really, that we've got record immigration. We're talking about legal immigration here. Understandably, the Tory record hasn't been particularly good. They have all their claims about reducing immigration just haven't worked. Now, I mean, all one can say is there are proposals in the pipeline to bring legal immigration down. So, for instance, that the skilled workers visa, that's just been increased by £12,000. So it brings it to the average of a skilled worker in Britain. That will have an effect. Students aren't allowed to bring in dependents. That's going to have an effect too. But I mean, I think that we have to accept that high immigration is with us for the foreseeable future. Reform talk about bringing it to net zero by working on the basis that it's one in, one out. So people who leave the country will match the ones coming in. That still puts immigration at around 400,000 incomers. So no one really has a proper answer to this problem.
No, but at least, I mean, at least the idea of net zero is a figure. I mean, what we're not getting from anybody else is any sort of figures, realistic or unrealistic.
No, that's right. I mean, in the Tory manifesto, they're promising to bring immigration down. They're talking about putting a cap on the numbers coming in. What they're not saying is what that cap might be. They say they want to leave it to Parliament. Now, I mean, the question really about immigration is that the way we should run it is on the basis of our economic needs. That kind of means you can't put a cap on it. It just depends on what we actually require at a certain time. So, for instance, there were 150,000 vacancies in social care. You need people from abroad to come and fill those vacancies. And now we have a system whereby 40% of social care workers are from abroad.
What do you make of this poll from YouGov yesterday showing that Reform have overtaken the Tories for the very first time?
First of all, we'll have to see if other polls confirm that. This could be an outlier. If other polls do confirm it, it is a really significant moment. However, when Nigel Farage starts saying that now Reform are the official opposition, you've got to look at the figures a little bit more carefully there, because the first part of the post system means that you don't get very many MPs. So at the moment, this poll is putting Reform on 19%, the Lib Dems, for instance, on 14%. Under proportional representation, that would mean that Reform would get loads of MPs. Under the current system, they get 5 under these figures, where the Lib Dems come back into Parliament with 69. So you can see that that it doesn't translate into MPs. Therefore, claiming you're the official opposition is a bit overambitious at this stage.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. However, at a point in time where we don't have any MPs, it's a fair point, isn't it, to say, well, you look at the nation and more people are backing us than the Conservatives, therefore we are the big challenger.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's semantics a little bit. But...
Yeah, Stephen, in the sense of the popular vote, you're absolutely right. That obviously Reform are way ahead of the Lib Dems and are just pipping the Tories at the moment. What I'm talking about is how that would translate to any kind of power. So this poll gives the Tories 71 MPs. That's pretty dire anyway. But if Reform could only bring back a handful of MPs, they would have a limited influence on the next Parliament.
What do you predict could happen by the time a next general election rolls around? So if we forget this one, look at 2028, 2029, could we see unity on the right? Could we see a pact, perhaps, between Reform and the Tories? And could Nigel Farage be leader?
Well, now we really are crystal ball gazing. But I mean, yes, anything is possible. It rather depends on the makeup of the next Conservative Party. So if you end up with a load of moderate MPs from the One Nation group, there's no way they're going to do any deals with Nigel Farage. There's no way they would allow him into the Tory party at all. If you get a lot of right-wing MPs and the next leader of the Conservative Party is a right-winger, then certainly it is possible that they could allow Nigel back into the Conservative Party, or they could do a pact with Reform. Again, it really depends on the makeup of the next Parliament, and that will then determine how things play out over the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it just goes to show there's an awful lot to play for in this election and probably the next one to come as well. Nigel, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Interesting times we live in.
Yeah, isn't it just?
Yeah.
Isn't it just? I mean, I did think it was... I mean, look, Nigel is in his element.
Oh, he's really enjoying himself, yes.
You know, and someone said, you shove a camera on him and he's happy. Well, look, I think that's very true. But when Penny Mordaunt last night said, a vote for Reform is a vote for Labour, he threw it back at her. I said, no, we're the main opposition now. A vote for the Tories is a vote for Labour. He's sharp as a tack. Anyway, hopefully we're going to be talking to Reform UK's chairman, Richard Tice, in just a few minutes. But throughout the campaign, we've been hearing from people right across the UK about what matters to you.
Yes, issues such as NHS waiting lists, the impact of immigration, the cost of living crisis, crime and policing, all of the above. Our reporters have been to meet voters from across all 4 nations. We're going to be hearing from them up until polling day. So today, for the first time, we meet John from East Yorkshire.
My name's John Dimberline. I'm from Withensea in East Yorkshire and I'm aged 61. I've been in business for a lot of years, probably 40 plus years. We're involved in property maintenance, property rentals. I think that immigration needs to be better controlled. The concern for me is the criminal element. It's the gangs, it's the trafficking, it's the human trafficking that goes on. One of the things that concerns me, and it's a historic thing really, is that when you look back over the wars that this country has fought, and many people, many of our ancestors, all our ancestors have given their lives, laid down their lives for this country, I think they would be turning in their graves to see the way that the country is not being invaded by the back door, but is losing what we or I consider to be traditional core British values. I've never really been a big politically motivated person. I've tended to not really bother. I've cracked on with business and thought, well, whoever gets in, gets in. It's as I've got older that I would be more inclined to vote. And my leanings now, I just don't see that I could vote Conservative. And I haven't voted for them for many years. And if I was going to lean any particular way, I think I'd try and find something a bit more common sense based that I mentioned earlier. So I'd probably lean towards the new Reform Party.
Interesting, that, isn't it? And you can see the appeal that some people have to what they say common sense approach. The problem is, again, we'll be putting this to Reform later, it all sounds common sense, but then how do you implement it? You still have to play the game of politics to make these things work, which isn't very popular, but that's just the sort of way it is. You've got to work in the system, which frustrates a lot of people.
It
I
does.
don't know. Keep your thoughts coming through, though, about... I know you're not shy in coming forward with your views this morning. gbnews.com/your say.
Now it's just coming up to 19 minutes past 7. Let's take a look at your weather with Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling very fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressures. You can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now. And first, we'd like to say a massive congratulations to John from West Yorkshire, who has won a massive £20,000. Here's the moment we called him to tell him the good news.
So, John, are you sitting down?
I'm on the bench in the garden.
I'm probably going to make your day. You've won £20,000.
Yes, you see, that is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic. You know, bearing in mind that when you're a pensioner, you're sort of sometimes cash poor, and so we really have had to actually tighten our belts. So actually this will mean that, I won't say we'll go on holiday, this keeps on banging on about going on holiday.
A little holiday.
But a little holiday maybe, I think, possibly, yes, why not? Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
I love the fact it's the wife in the background telling me exactly what you're going to do.
A little holiday.
We are going to have a little holiday. We are over the moon, John. We are, John.
Yep.
Good on you both.
Behind every great man.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yes. Well, in most cases. Well, look, we could be calling you next, because you've got the chance to win £15,000 in cash with some summer treats. So here are the details.
It's our Summer Spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Well, now we can speak to Reform UK Chairman Richard Tice. Very good morning to you, Richard. And what's your response to this poll out yesterday by YouGov, placing Reform above the Tories for the very first time?
Well, obviously, good morning. We're delighted with that poll, which reflects what we're hearing up and down the country as our candidates are campaigning. Something's happening out there. It's quite extraordinary. So we were hoping that we would get to equality and then what they call crossover in the polls. And of course, this is the Rolls Royce of pollsters. It's not some Mickey Mouse pollster that no one's heard of. And the other polls are beginning to catch up. The momentum is with us. Something is definitely happening out there. Word is spreading. And voters actually, I think, are just thrilled that there's a serious alternative, credible option putting forward different policies about how you make work pay, how you get people off benefits, how you can lift the income tax threshold to £20,000 from £12,500, how you can get to zero waiting lists on healthcare and reform the way we do healthcare still free at the point of delivery, and how you freeze immigration in order to allow the country to catch up. These are the things that people want to talk about, and they're delighted when we arrive on the doorstep and say, have we got news for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting talking to one of our viewers earlier on. He says common sense policies are appealing to him. The problem with it is, Richard, as punters, we've got to take so much of it on trust, haven't we? I mean, you come up with these ideas, and they're in your contract, to be fair, on the website at the moment and everything else. But we don't actually know how you would implement any of it. I mean, looking at your finances, the funding of Reform UK, I mean, the figures look great. However, how do we know if any of it is real?
Very simple, because if you look at the people involved at the top of Reform UK, we are successful people from the world of business. We've been around the block a few times. We know how to make things happen, to fix things and to sort things. That's why people trust us. They're bored of the sort of policy wonk politicians from the main two parties who've never had a proper job, never actually been out there, rolled up their sleeves, got stuck in, sweated about how they're going to pay the salaries at the end of the week for the business that they run. That's who we are, and that's why I think people are saying, thank heavens for that. It's not waffle, it's quality, not quantity. And we're the people, for example, that have been talking about how you can pay for that income tax increase in the threshold by stopping this ridiculous voluntary payment by the Bank of England of interest on all its printed money. We've raised that. We've now got the Financial Times agreeing with us. We've got Robert Peston agreeing with us. We've got economists from left and right agreeing with us. And yet zero response from the Treasury or the Bank of England or the Chancellor, because they're embarrassed that we're right. And we know we're making progress. When the big banks lobby groups start attacking us, we're definitely on the right side of the people.
Richard, I wanted to ask you about policy, because Nigel Farage, speaking last night, says that you are now the main opposition to the Labour Party. And we saw the Labour Party's manifesto, didn't we? A lot of it focused on schools and overhauling our schools, BAT on private school fees, for example. What reform do about education in this country?
It's very simple. We'll do exactly the opposite of the absurd Labour policy, which is going to... Labour's plan will dump 100,000 children back into the state education system, which means that everybody in state education will have bigger, more pressured class sizes, more pressured teachers, and the quality of education for all will deteriorate. What you should do with education is actually say, no, if you can afford to pay a bit more, then we'll give you a tax incentive of basic rate tax relief in order to go independent, and that'll free up pressure on the state education system, which means everybody gets a better system, and you've got more choice. And that will drive... Competition is a good thing. It drives up standards. It drives down costs. It's exactly the same in healthcare. Here's my prediction. I think one of the secret things that the Labour Party is not telling you is they want to put VAT on independent healthcare. And again, that will just add pressure onto the already overburdened, overpressured NHS. And the other key thing that we've got to do is we've got to freeze immigration to let the country catch up, because public services are massively under pressure. Our quality of life is reducing. Everybody's getting poorer. We're in the longest per person recession since records began some 70 years ago, for heaven's sake.
How do you do that with immigration? I mean, they're talking to a guest earlier on, Richard, and they were saying, well, look, for a kick-off, it would still mean about 400,000 people coming in, even if you had net migration. But what happens if you have a sector that suddenly has a requirement for a whole load of jobs that we don't have, for workers that we don't have in this country?
Hey,
what do you do? Suddenly lift that ban?
No. Hey, guess what? Market forces prevail, and yes, in that sector, if there's a bit of a shortage, businesses have to do one of two things. You either pay more salaries to attract people, or if you can't afford that, you invest in capital equipment to improve productivity. That's literally the basic thrust of how economies have worked for 200 years until we changed the whole dynamic and suddenly allowed just a complete mass increase in supply of overseas labour. So actually, a shortage of labour is a good thing. It'll improve productivity. It'll lift wages for British people. We've seen almost zero real wage growth in the last 15 years or so in this country. In the 1990s, we had about 2.7% per annum real wage growth. That's what I want to get back. That's why Reform UK is the party of the workers.
Richard, what do you say to people like Dave Clark, who emailed us in this morning and accused the Reform Party of being a one-trick pony party on immigration?
Well, if you look at the draft contract that we've got on our website, we're producing our sort of final contract on Monday. You can see 30 pages of lots of policies on different issues, how you stimulate growth, how you make work pay, how you get people off benefits, how you get to zero waiting lists on healthcare, how you get safer streets, and how freezing immigration and how you stop the boat. So there's a whole range of policies. So with the greatest of respect to Mr. Clark, I think when you really look at it, you can say, actually, those are a whole range of policies. Of course, there's more. And that's because we've got the common sense to raise these issues. And look, I'm not in any way saying there aren't other ways of doing things. What I am saying is you can't tax your way out of a crisis like the Tories and Labour want to do. You've got to grow your way out of crisis. You've got to think boldly. You've got to do things differently. You've got to change the way we run this great country.
I wonder if, amidst the celebrations, Richard, of this poll, which, is a historic moment in its own right, but are you holding your head in your hands a little bit? Because, translating it into a parliament would still put, despite the Tories being behind you in this poll, would give them 70-odd seats and you 5.
And thank you for making the case for proportional representation, because that's patently, totally unfair. If we get, as I think we will now, with this momentum, every prospect, we get more votes cast for Reform UK than the Conservatives. We become the democratic, legitimate opposition, and yet the seat numbers wouldn't reflect that. So it was patently absurd. So, look, we are where we are. We operate under the voting system we've got. We'd like to change it. But I think more and more people will say, thank heavens for reform. We've got to also reform our voting system, amongst many other things. That's who we are. But surely democracy is better served when there's more options, more serious contenders on the ballot paper, and more debate about different ways to govern and manage the country. That's who we are. That's what we're doing. And that common sense approach from people who know what they're doing and have got a successful track record, that's why we're succeeding in the polls, and other polls I think will soon catch up.
I would certainly agree with you on the need for more debate in this country, Richard. I mean, that's why we exist here on GB News. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Well, let us know what you thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to debate, isn't it? And whether you agree with what Reform are doing or not, but talk about it. At least we're talking about it.
gbnews.com/you'll say. Let us know what you think. Now, brewers and pubs are up in arms over beer duty. Find out more after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This
is GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour, Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Now, if you're going to watch the Euros, maybe it could just be cheaper to fly to Germany to do it, because the beer duty in Germany is 12 times less than the beer duty here in the UK. So what's going on? Let's talk to the Chief Executive of the British Beer and Pub Association, Emma McClarkin. Good to see you, Emma. Why is our beer duty so high?
Well, it's been going up incrementally, unfortunately, over the last few years. And we are seeing, unfortunately, as you say, 12 times more duty than they pay in Germany. It's the same again in Spain. And we pay the highest, simply some of the highest taxes in Europe. And we really want to make a difference. And it's the start of the Euros, but it's also election time. So we hope that the politicians will be listening. And our ask is very clear that we want to keep a pint affordable for all. It's currently 54p in a pint, over 54p in a pint that we're seeing in taxation at the moment, where they're only paying 4p in Germany. Something's got to be done.
What would a cut in beer duty do for the industry?
Oh, it would be huge. And let's not talk about it just for our pubs, it's also for our brewers, who are the highest taxed industry that we have in the UK. And that is something that absolutely needs to be supported. We're very proud of our British beer. We are renowned for the Great British Pub and our fantastic ales. And it's time that we went out there and we're proud and we're supporting our brewers at home as well as promoting them overseas. And a duty cut would do that. And it would support our pubs with 7 out of 10 alcoholic drinks being sold actually being pints of beer. So it is really incremental to making a difference to saving our British pubs.
Yeah, but if the government was losing in tax 50p a pint to bring us in line with Germany, for example, well, we know, we're listening to all the debates, we know we can't afford to do that. No government's going to do it.
What we say to them is set us on a pathway to do it, that bring us down incrementally so that we can remain competitive globally when we're putting our beer out there around the world and when we're also drinking it at home. And that's something that they could commit to do over time. And there's absolutely elasticity in what we do. You know, if there is a reduction in the cost of a pint, we do see more consumers coming out and feeling that they can afford to spend. And we're one of those areas of discretionary spend. We really get a feel for what's happening in the economy. And people have been very, very much cautious with their money over the last few months. And of course, we've seen really bad weather. So we're looking forward to the Euros for a bit of a boost from that perspective. But wouldn't it be great to see our next government committing to support our Great British Brewers and the Great British Pub with that reduction.
Because pub culture is a big part of being British, isn't it? But it is becoming a lot more difficult for people. You've got places in London now that are charging best part of £9 for a pint.
Well, this is it. We're in a cost of living crisis and people are not able to sometimes go out as often. We've seen people doing that, but we know that people want to go out. We have those data stats. People still see the pub at the heart of their communities. 81% of them see it as their sanctuary, their home away from home. And so let's keep it affordable for all. Let's be proud of what we do. And the pub is an engine for growth on the high street, force multiplier, multiplying that with all the small businesses around us with increased footfall. So let's keep supporting them. It's a cultural, economic and a social asset. And we would all be poorer without the Great British Pub.
OK. Emma McClarkin from the British Beer and Pub Association. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. It's put you in the mood for a pint, actually.
Yeah, me too. I don't even drink pints.
No. So want one anyway. Paul Coyte's going to have your sport in just a minute.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M6 in Staffordshire, the inside lanes closed southbound after an accident between junctions 10A and 10 from the M54 to the Walsall Wolverhampton turn, causing queues. On the M4 in Newport, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 24 and 23A from Caldra to the Magor services near queues towards and past there. Also on the M4 west of London, there's a lane closed westbound where a lorry's broken down just after junction 2 at Brentford with queues from junction 1 at Chiswick. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks again today. Also in Kent, Old Thanet Way in Herne Bay is closed for an investigation. And a couple of problems in East Sussex. The A267 is blocked by an accident off North Street at Hellingline north of Hailsham, causing delays. And the A22 is partly blocked by an accident at the Bowship roundabout at Lower Dicker near Hailsham. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it? He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. It's 7:42. Paul Coyte is here with all the sport.
You see that little excited look in my face?
Yes.
You're delighted.
51 games.
51 games, which begin tonight in Munich, which is Germany versus Scotland. Scotland, who have never got past the group stage of any major tournament ever. You know, you always have early memories. I know you've got very early football memories there going back. I know you'd never think I was old enough, but 1978, when Scotland played in the World Cup in Argentina, for some reason, that sticks in my mind now. I still remember the results. I remember losing to Peru 3-1, the 1-1 against Iran, and then beating the Netherlands or Holland as they were then, whatever is the right thing to call them. They never made it into the stages at the end. It sticks with me all those years on. But there we are. There's Scottish fans having a lovely time. That man there that's having a drink, who looks like, well, he's got a big backpack and everybody's surrounding him. His name's Craig Ferguson. He actually walked from Glasgow all the way to Munich. It wasn't because he was too tight to actually get the train or get a flight. It was just because he was doing it for charity. Just arrived, all the Scottish fans making a big fuss of him. So I do hope he's got a ticket, and I do hope he can manage to get home. But there we are.
He'll be right. He'll be right.
You know what? It's going to be exciting tonight because Germany obviously are at home. Everybody's expecting them to do extremely well, and Scotland are going to have to. They're probably going to sit back, let Germany do all the work and then just try and hit them on the brakes. So there's a possibility they may be able to do something. But you know what? It would shock Munich and it would shock Europe.
I mean, that'd be brilliant. Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot. I know that it works both ways. A lot of Scottish fans would look at England and absolutely want England to lose every time. I know there's a lot of English fans that feel that way with Scotland, but I absolutely do not feel that. No, and I want Scotland to do well.
Yeah.
Unless they're playing England. But seriously,
that's
absolutely, I really hope they do well. Now, England, let's England do a training for their game. They're playing Serbia on Sunday. Now, there's been pictures of England players with rings on. Now, not as blingy as maybe Ellie has, or you, Stephen, but
or you,
or myself. But if you look now, have a look. Now, there's Gareth Southgate. I don't know whether you can actually see the ring that he's wearing. There's quite a lot of fuss. See that black ring there he's got around his finger?
Is it a health monitor thing?
It is. Yeah, it is a health monitor, and a lot of the England players are wearing them. You'll see them wearing them. Aura rings, they're called. They're about between £300 and £500 with your smartphone, because you can get them in gold and silver, so they look like regular rings. They will then tell heart rate, blood oxygen, sleep duration, everything. So they're all monitoring. That's why they've all got these rings on.
Sounds very techy.
So some of them you're looking and thinking, well, are they married? No, it's because they're being monitored the whole time.
So makes sense if you're a sports person.
Of course it does. Hungary, Switzerland on Saturday, Spain, Croatia, Italy, Albania, Sunday, Poland, Netherlands, Slovenia, Denmark. I know the one you're looking forward to there. And then the big one, 8 p.m, from Gelsenkirchen, England versus Serbia.
Yeah. Wonderful.
The Euros are here, hurrah.
We look forward to it.
Denmark, that's the one for me.
I know it is.
Oh,
I know it is.
Come on,
Who's
Denmark.
it going to be? Who's it going to? Can't say. Could go either way.
Could do. Paul, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers shortly with Mike Buckley and Lynn May. That's next.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
The Princess of Wales has reportedly been out and about, enjoying days out with her family, while she continues to undergo her treatment for cancer.
And Buckingham Palace says they have been inundated with tens of thousands of get well soon cards and gifts for the princess.
Yes, I can imagine so. Now we're joined by former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Charles, how do they know she's been out and about with her family?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. It's interesting, yes. I mean, how do they know that she's been out and about? No pictures have been seen of the princess out and about. And I'm surprised that with all the people who've got camera phones, that if she has been that out and about, that we haven't seen her. But anyway, we have to accept that she is out and about. She's with her family. But the palace are making it quite clear, pointing out that this should not be confused with her returning to work anytime soon. There are even some suggestions that she won't return to work probably until the autumn, and there's one suggestion that may not even be till next year. Like her father-in-law, she's not sitting at home with her feet up watching daytime TV. She is actually working. She's actually doing things
And yet, this is a difficult time, of course, for the royal family to navigate everything. The King has cancer, the Princess of Wales has cancer, and we're in the middle of a general election campaign where the royal family have to be very, very careful about where they go, what they do and what they say.
Sure. And as you quite rightly say, Tom, I mean, things have had to be cancelled in any case. So during this next 6 weeks, we are not going to be seeing any members of the royal family doing as much as they possibly can or can do prior to a general election.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. We're going through the papers now with former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Lynn May. Very good morning to you both. And Mike, let's start with a story on the front page of many of the papers this morning. It is the tax trap being offered by Labour, reportedly, in their manifesto.
So, I mean, it's an unfair way to describe what's in Labour's manifesto or indeed the state of the country. But as we all know, the public finances have been left in a very dire state after 14 years of Conservative government. I mean, as everybody knows, unfortunately, the tax take now is the highest it's been for 70 years. But at the same time, government debt is also very, very high, nearly 100% of GDP. What that means is the next government of whatever flavour is going to have a difficult time getting public services back on track, but also making sure that they're not putting additional tax burdens on the public because, you know, we're all paying enough tax. And indeed, there's the mess the economy left by Liz Truss as well, which has put mortgages up and prices up in the shops, etc. So there is this difficult choice. There will be difficult choices to make. But Labour set out very clearly what it will spend money on. You know, first and foremost, probably the NHS.
There's still a black hole, though, isn't there?
There is a gap, but basically Labour's going to have to make choices, either to get money from elsewhere, but actually it's made clear it's not going to put taxes up on working people, so that isn't going to happen. But it does appear that there will have to be cuts made in some departments, according to some think tanks. But actually Labour's saying, you know, we will find a way to make this work, and the way that they're saying to make it, they will make it work, is by getting growth going in the economy, which has been severely lacking, which increases the tax take, which means they've got more money to spend.
What's the black hole looking like in Labour's
So, well, I mean, basically, Labour's saying there is no black hole, but think tanks are saying, you know, economists are saying, look, there is this black hole. You will either have to cut spending or you'll have to get money from elsewhere to be able to do what you want to do. Labour's saying, we've got a plan to get growth going in the economy. We will fill the gap that way around.
Can you base it all on growth, which isn't guaranteed, Lynn?
Well, like I said previously, I don't see what this big plan for growth is that's going to actually get the country going how we need it to go. And with regards to this increase of taxes, we've had the highest taxes for over 70 years. And with things like the non-dom status, we have already seen an exodus of high net worth individuals leaving Britain. It's over 3,000 in 2003. So if we go after those individuals at a time like this, I don't see how they'll be able to sustain and keep to the promise of not increasing taxes for the average working person.
I suppose the issue is, Mike, with all of this, that they're doing a lot of money, revenue raising from taxes that people don't have to pay, because you can leave the country if you're non-dom, you can not send your kids to private school if you're already doing that. So these taxes could just disappear.
Well, they're going to get money from cracking down on tax avoidance, which is very important because there has been too much of that, partly because, I mean, since the time of George Osborne 10 years ago, the government has basically taken staff out of HMRC, you know, the body that collects tax, which has increased tax avoidance. And indeed, the Conservatives are also saying they're going to crack down on tax avoidance. So everybody agrees it's a problem and a fixable problem. Labour's also saying they're going to crack down on non-doms, which is people living here but not paying taxes, which is fundamentally unfair. If some of these people choose to leave the country, so be it. it.
I think you do pay taxes through
it's
VAT,
set in the
though.
principle. You cannot. If I tried to live here and not pay tax, I'd be in trouble. So would all of us. Why should some super wealthy person be able to do that?
But my argument is, and it's not disagreeing with that as a point in principle, it's that if you're basing a lot of your manifesto on claiming tax from these people who aren't currently paying tax and they decide to get on the next plane, then you can't fund your promises.
A small minority of them may do so, but I very much doubt the vast majority
I don't think
will,
over
because they'll be
3,000
living
small-
here, they've
small
got kids in
amount,
school, they're doing jobs. They obviously like living in the UK. The Labour's also going to get money from increasing the windfall tax on oil and energy companies as well. So, you know, obviously they've made loads of money
But
in the
that's
last
only
few years.
temporary, they say.
It may be only temporary, but obviously their long-term plan is to get growth going in the economy by relaxing the planning rules and by working with business and industry.
We're down to 1 minute, Lynn, I'm sorry.
No,
Can we just look at this in the Mail about the mouse mover?
Oh, OK. I find this quite interesting, actually, because essentially what banks are trying to do, as well as other companies are probably going to follow, is these tiny little mouse wigglers that you put at the side of your computer that looks as if you're online. And they're getting rid of people that have been using these mouse wigglers, which are essentially pretending to be working from home, but probably off in the gym or wherever they are. But I just think, you know, so it looks as though you're online.
It moves the mouse for you.
It moves it for you. But my thing is, if an individual is doing their work, they're hitting their targets, do we need micromanaging like this?
Yeah, but if you're paying them to be sat there, you expect them to be sat there.
I think people should be paid to do a job, and if that job is being delivered, I don't think they shouldn't have to look at what else they're doing.
Oh, well, interesting. Thank you both. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Let's have a look at your weather now with Alex Deakin.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M65 in Lancashire is blocked westbound by an accident at junction 3 west of Blackburn, causing queues. Train services in Cambridgeshire have been stopped between Ely and Cambridge because of a signalling problem. On the M4 in Newport, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 24 and 23A from the Caldra to the Magor, services causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues again this morning, getting onto the M25 at junction 5 because of roadworks. Also in Kent, Old Thanet Way is closed each way between Greenhill Bridge Road and the A299 Thanet Way at the Herne Bay junction for an investigation. And in East Sussex, the A22 is partly blocked. There's an accident at the A267 Bowship roundabout at Lower Dicker near Hailsham. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're making this summer funner with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour. Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true, You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock, Friday the 14th of June. Today, a blow to Rishi Sunak as Reform overtake the Tories in an opinion poll for the first time ever. Nigel Farage declares his party is the official opposition.
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
Penny Mordaunt, Angela Rayner and Nigel Farage clash in a 7-way showdown over immigration, NHS and tax.
Penny Mordaunt dubs Labour's plan to launch a tax raid on private schools as crazy, claiming it's going to push more children into the state system.
Pubs and breweries across the country demand an immediate cut in beer duty, as it's a staggering 3 times the European average.
And the shipwreck of Sir Ernest Shackleton's final vessel is found off the coast of Canada.
And in the sport, 29 days, 24 nations, 51 games, millions of broken dreams. I'm just preparing myself to lose it to Germany on penalties. You know that, don't you? Euro 24 kicks off in Munich tonight with Germany against Scotland. In Antigua, England take just 19 balls to beat Oman in the most one-sided T20 World Cup match in history. And after 1 round, Rory McIlroy leads the US Open. He was bogey-free with just 3 rounds to go. And by the way, I hear you ask, where is that Olympic flame?
Where is that Olympic flame?
That was very good. I will tell you. I will tell you. Just hang on.
It's not quite as chilly out there this morning. It will be a day where you'll need your umbrella handy, but you'll also need some sunglasses nearby as well. Yes, a mixture of sunshine and heavy showers. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I don't want to sound like I'm telling you off.
Oh.
Not you.
Oh.
You, I'm afraid to say. We're getting lots of messages this morning saying that we're sending you subliminal messages because we're wearing red. Now, let's be honest, we wear red, we wear blue, we wear green, we wear yellow, we wear purple. So it's not subliminal messaging, it's just there are only so many colours
in the wardrobe
that we have. And wearing red is not a subliminal message. Yes. So please don't think that. Honestly, just apply a little bit of the common sense. We're just wearing colours. Tomorrow will be a different colour.
Yes.
So there you go. It doesn't mean anything.
I'm actually going to wear tartan tomorrow. Doing a special Trooping the Colour programme with Andrew Pearce, cheeky plug there, from 10 a.m.
Yes.
And we're going to be in tartan.
You're going to be in
tartan.
tartan?
I believe he may even be in red. Sorry. But that will be to blend with my tartan and nothing else. Eileen has been in touch on gbnews.com/your say, saying Nigel Farage, I'm sure, will support the reduction of tax duty on beer.
Yes.
Yes, I imagine he would, actually. That's very true.
He likes a pint. Also, someone who I can't think, it was ages ago now, but just said, I will vote for whichever party promises to reduce the price of beer. Which is a fair point. If you campaigned purely on that, you could win a lot of support.
You would get a lot of support for that, because it is part of great British culture, I think, going into a pub. And it does put you off. If you go into a pub and a drink is £9, £10, you can't stay for many drinks, can you?
No.
It's going to add up.
Beer's a lot cheaper where I live. It's not like London prices.
What would you pay for a pint?
But even... Well, it's still... Well, I will only buy 2 drinks together. But if I buy a bottle of non-alcoholic, I hate to say it, and a pint for my much better half, it still comes in at like 9-10 quid. For basically a pint and a half.
Yeah.
It gets expensive.
So it is expensive, isn't it? I mean, we are in a cost of living crisis. People can't afford to drink the way that they used to. You used to be able to sit in a pub and sit there for 6-7 hours all night.
Yeah. You need a new mortgage
You would need to remortgage to do that now, wouldn't you? Especially if you're down here in London. Anyway, keep your views coming in on any of the stories that we're talking about today. gbnews.com/your say.
I remember when it went up to £1 a pint when I was working at the Farmers. Many years ago, behind the bar, and it went up to £1 a pint, and the locals kicking off.
Oh, really?
And when I was at uni, it was £1.50. And that seemed like an awful lot of money for a pint.
I remember when I was at uni, you could get, well, it's probably quite bad, isn't it? You could get a quad vod, which is quadruple shot of vodka.
Quad vod?
I just used to get them, which is a bit of a concern, now that I think about it, for £2.
Quad vod for £2.
£2.
Oh, you were a party girl, weren't you?
What would that be now? About 30, probably? £30?
Dread
to think. Anyway,
right, there you go. If you've got any interesting beer stories, gbnews.com. Yeah. Right, Nigel Farage says his party are the official opposition after Reform UK overtook the Conservatives in the polls for the first time.
Yes, a YouGov poll for The Times. Reform gained 2 points to reach 19%. The Tories sit unchanged on 18%. Labour has seen a slight drop in support, down to 37%. Well, earlier we got the reaction of Reform UK chairman Richard Tice.
With that poll, which reflects what we're hearing up and down the country as our candidates are campaigning. Something's happening out there. It's quite extraordinary. So we were hoping that we would get to equality and then what they call crossover in the polls. And of course, this is the Rolls-Royce of pollsters. It's not some Mickey Mouse pollster that no one's heard of. And the other polls are beginning to catch up. The momentum is with us. Something is definitely happening out there. Word is spreading. And voters actually, I think, are just thrilled that there's a serious alternative, credible option putting forward different policies about how you make work pay, how you get people off benefits, how you can lift the income tax threshold to £20,000 from £12,500, how you can get to zero waiting lists on healthcare and reform the way we do healthcare still free at the point of delivery, and how you freeze immigration in order to allow the country to catch up. These are the things that people want to talk about, and they're delighted when we arrive on the doorstep and say, have we got news for you?
Well, the poll made for an interesting opening bout to last night's debate, where 7 parties competed to win your vote.
The Labour Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, was asked if she would rejoin the European Union.
If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Well, the Lib Dems have been putting fixing the NHS and social care at the heart of their policies.
Our manifesto is a manifesto to save the NHS and social care. We're pledging £9 billion to invest upstream. We see on the TV all these disastrous pictures of people dying in the back of ambulances, suffering the indignity of corridor care because they can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, and that's what we want to fix.
Well, the SNP's Stephen Flynn criticised Labour's hesitations over the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
It took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, will you end arms sales to Israel?
But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Well, you may remember from the previous seven-way debate that the Plaid Cymru leader wasn't impressed with the ambitions of the main parties. And, well, in the last week, not much has changed.
Election, you'll hear me talking a lot about ambition. Where is the ambition from either of the Westminster main parties to invest in allowing us in Wales to make the most of our natural resources through devolving the Crown Estate, allowing us to invest in transport and connectivity through giving us the billions we're owed as a result of HS2 rail in England? That's the ambition that we need. We're not hearing it from the Conservatives, and I regret we're not hearing it from
Nigel. Well, the Greens' Carla Denyer says immigration isn't the problem, it's government failure to invest that causes issues.
I think it's shameful when some politicians scapegoat the people who become our neighbours, our friends, our colleagues, to distract from their chronic underinvestment in public services. The solution isn't scapegoating or pulling up the drawbridge. The solution is investing in our communities to make sure everyone has access to the services they need.
Well, after seeing his party surge in the polls, Reform UK's Nigel Farage took the Tories to task over their immigration promises.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
enough, that's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
Well, our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Olivia. Lots to get through with you, but should we start with this poll that places Reform ahead of the Tories for the very first time? What do you make of it?
Well, it was fantastic timing for the Reform Party and Nigel Farage. I mean, a half an hour, I think it was, before that seven-way leaders debate started and Nigel Farage went on air. This YouGov poll, and as Richard Tice said there, YouGov is obviously a very well-respected, established pollster, put the Reform Party ahead of the Conservatives for the first time. And what was perhaps particularly interesting about that is it's not as if the Conservatives have fallen down even further in the polls. Actually, the Conservatives are bobbing along very low, but bobbing along consistently at about 18%. The Reform Party has now jumped them at 19%. Now, this was gold dust for Nigel Farage in that debate last night. Penny Mordaunt called the Reform Party Labour enablers. This is the line from Conservatives, from Conservative HQ. This is what they're using on the doorsteps. They say, vote for Reform, you might like their policies, but you'll just end up with a Labour MP because you'll end up splitting the right. Well, because of this poll last night, Nigel Farage was able to say, a vote for Conservatives is a vote for Labour because we are now the official opposition. Now, obviously, it doesn't really work like that. Yes, Reform might have an impressive vote share, but that is very, very unlikely to translate into seats. That Reform vote share is split quite evenly, sort of up and down the country, obviously a bit more concentrated on certain areas. But Reform doesn't have the sort of campaigning infrastructure to be able to target individual seats. But this is deeply, deeply worrying for the Conservatives and exactly what they didn't want to see at this stage in the campaign.
And it has to be said, I mean, that point, we just played that clip of Penny Mordaunt saying, you know, we trust us because of Rishi Sunak's record on, I mean, that was on immigration. But when you're being laughed at by a studio audience, it's not a good sign.
Well, exactly. I mean, this election was always going to be very difficult for the Conservatives, simply because they have been in government for so long, 14 years. Any problem which the country is facing at the moment, and Nigel Farage brought up immigration, other issues were brought up too, but it is very difficult for the Conservatives to say, I know over the past 14 years barely anything has changed, or in some cases got worse, but please trust us next time round. And that is probably why Nigel Farage's sort of insurgent new party is managing to take so many votes away from the Conservatives. And on immigration, of course, Reform's line is particularly powerful. That Rwanda plan was supposed to be a sort of silver bullet to the illegal immigration problem, but still flights have not taken off from the runway, as Boris Johnson promised back in 2022. As for legal migration, it was up at something like 700,000 last year. Labour say that they want to get it down, but they haven't put a number on it, which again gives Reform a lot of clear space, a blank canvas, if you like, to win over voters who care deeply about immigration.
Olivia Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's talk now to former Labour advisor Matthew Larser. Good to see you this morning, Matthew. Look, I mean, there is some excitement building in this election. There's some excitement growing for a party, but it's not Labour.
No, I mean, Labour's holding broadly steady, and the key thing for Labour is that the lead in the polls is holding steady as the Tories decline. Labour's absolute figures off a few points because of the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. It's lost 2 or 3 points to that. But, you know, obviously the big story at the moment is a Reform and whether Reform are going to overtake the Tories. But if you still add the Reform and the Tory figure together, even together, it's only the same as the Labour Party. So, yeah, I mean, but if you're inside the Tory campaign this morning, the wheels are going to start to come off, because psychologically to come third as the governing party is a huge blow. It happened to Gordon Brown in 2010 and it had a huge impact on that campaign. And I think we'll see the Tories even more nervous this morning.
But the point I'm trying to make is there's still no excitement for Labour, is there? I mean, it might be the default for a lot of people who just say, well, I'm fed up with the government, I need a change. But there is no excitement. There's no sort of clear blue waters. A lot of people saying, well, it's just, it's the similar policies just with a different colour rosette.
Well, I think what we saw in the debate yesterday, as you said, Stephen, is huge cynicism in that studio audience, which reflects a really angry and cynical electorate. And so I don't think that there's huge enthusiasm for anybody. I think Nigel, with his kind of big personality, sets a certain demographic a light, and he gives them energy. But for most people, they're just really fed up about what's gone on over the last 14 years. So no, I'm old enough to remember the 97 election when Blair was elected Prime Minister. You don't have the same excitement you have now, but that's because the electorate is ground down and is in a really different place. What you're seeing is Labour hold steady at around 40% across the 6 polls we've had this week, which means that Labour's on course for a big majority. And we've seen this desperate tactic from the Tories in saying, don't give Labour a so-called super majority, where, you know, which is absolutely extraordinary. The party that's been in government for 14 years is now saying the best it can do is try and save a few seats at the bottom of its register. So, you know, this is absolutely extraordinary to see the Conservative Party down on 18%. I think Labour does, though, need to inject some energy to get its vote out. That's what Labour headquarters will be worrying about today, is the sense of complacency with the Tories in third place. Will that demotivate people who are going to vote Labour from feeling they actually have to come out and put their cross on their ballot paper?
But Matthew, across all of the papers today, including on the front page of The Guardian, doubts over how Labour are going to pay for the policies that they have set out in their manifesto. Their manifesto, which must be said, was very light on detail. The front page of the Daily Mail today is saying, what are they not telling us about tax hikes?
Well, I think, and we've also seen criticism from people like Ed Balls, the former Labour Shadow Chancellor, that the manifesto is too timid. Labour's strategy in this election has been to play it very safe and to be very clear on the headline issues. So there's no way that Labour's going to increase income tax or national insurance. It's made that pledge absolutely clear. I think, you know, it is pretty clear that after Labour gets in, it will look at the books, and you may see a rise in capital gains tax, which it has refused to rule out. But what Blair and Brown did when they were first elected is they stuck to the Tory spending plans for the first year, but they got the economy growing, and then they were able to find serious extra money for the NHS in the second year and going forward. So it may be a difficult first few months for the Labour government, but what Keir set out yesterday was a whole series of plans to get growth up, and then the growth will start to pay dividends for public services.
Yeah, the problem is that all these politicians tell us that, that you vote for us and this is what's going to happen. We're going to grow the economy, we're going to do X, Y and Z. There's no guarantee of any of it.
No, absolutely not. And that's the danger that a Labour government will face. But there are clearly things that you can do. So Keir set out reform of the planning system, which frankly, even a lot of Conservatives think failure to get Britain building is one of the things holding the economy back. A new industrial strategy, Great British Energy, because we've seen how much energy security has laid on the whole economy. And Labour has set out very clear proposals on things like creating extra GP appointments, extra dental appointments for children, a commitment on class sizes and a commitment on childcare. So there are clear policies in the manifesto, but clearly the country is in a very sorry state, and Labour's going to be cautious about what it can do in those initial phases. The key thing is Labour's pledge on income tax and national insurance that they will not go up under Labour is absolutely sacrosanct.
OK. Matthew Laza, good to see you.
Well, throughout this election campaign, we're going to be hearing from people across the United Kingdom about what really matters to them.
Yeah, of course, it's things like waiting lists, impact of immigration, cost of living crisis, policing and crime. Our reporters have been to meet voters from all 4 nations. So today, let's introduce you to John from East Yorkshire.
My name's John Dimberline. I'm from Withensea in East Yorkshire and I'm aged 61. I've been in business for a lot of years, probably 40 plus years. We're involved in property maintenance, property rentals. I think that immigration needs to be better controlled. The concern for me is the criminal element. It's the gangs, it's the trafficking, it's the human trafficking that goes on. One of the things that concerns me, and it's a historic thing really, is that when you look back over the wars that this country has fought, and many people, many of our ancestors, all our ancestors have given their lives, laid down their lives for this country, I think they would be turning in their graves to see the way that the country is not being invaded by the back door, but is losing what we or I consider to be traditional core British values. I've never really been a big politically motivated person. I've tended to not really bother. I've cracked on with business and thought, well, whoever gets in, gets in. It's as I've got older that I would be more inclined to vote. And my leanings now, I just don't see that I could vote Conservative. And I haven't voted for them for many years. And if I was going to lean any particular way, I think I'd try and find something a bit more common sense based that I mentioned earlier. So I'd probably lean towards the new Reform Party.
We are going to be hearing from people across the United Kingdom in the run-up to polling day.
Yeah, let's go check on the weather across the United Kingdom for you now. See if there are any bright spots anywhere. Here's Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers showers come. The temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it is time for the Great British Giveaway now. And first, we'd like to say a massive congratulations to John.
And his wife.
And his wife, who you're about to hear from West Yorkshire, who won a massive £20,000. Here's the moment we called him to tell him the good news.
So, John, are you sitting down?
I'm on the bench in the garden.
I'm probably going to make your day. You've won £20,000.
Yes, you see, that is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic. You know, bearing in mind that when you're a pensioner, you're sort of sometimes cash poor, and so we really have had to actually tighten our belts. So actually this will mean that, I won't say we'll go on holiday, this keeps on banging on about going on holiday.
A little holiday.
But a little holiday maybe, I think, possibly, yes, why not? Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, we know where's the trousers.
Yeah, we're over the moon. You can hear his wife say in the background.
Well, having a little holiday, John, whether you like it or not. Quite right too, madam.
Yeah, least you guys deserve.
Get yourself away and enjoy a bit of sunshine, because we're not getting it over here at the minute. Anyway, if you fancy a call like that, you could be next, because you've got the chance to win £15,000 in cash and a whole load of summer treats. Here are the details.
It's our Summer Spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck. I wish someone had called me, you know. Why can't
I don't think we're allowed to be
call
called. Mark Dolan, I don't think we're allowed to be called.
Come on, Dolan. Just give us a call.
I think it's as simple as that.
Be a spoof call. I don't care. It'd be great, wouldn't it? You've won £60. Brilliant. Anyway, look, still to come. Big tournament for Scotland. How could they do in the Euros, their big match, the opening match tonight, of course, against Germany? We'll get the latest from Glasgow in just a minute.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Helen Worth, who of course plays Gail Platt in Coronation Street, is going to leave the soap after an epic 50 years. I'm joined now by another Corrie legend, Charlie Lawson, whose character, of course, Jim MacDonald, lived across the cobbles from Gail Platt for many years. Welcome to the show, Charlie. I can see you looking at those images there, and has to be said, fantastic acting. In 50 years, many of us just grew up with these characters and basically think they're part of our family. Can you shed light on some of your happy memories of the talent of Helen Worth?
We saw each other every day. She was a consummate professional and still is. This initially surprised me, but then I thought about it, and I'm frankly not surprised. Having spoken to certain senior members of the cast over the last period of time, you know, when Helen joined, or even when I joined, there was a cast of 25. I would put another 75 on that now, perhaps. It's a different animal now, totally, you know, 4, 5, 6 episodes a week. When Helen started, it would have been 2. She lives in London. She's not getting any younger, and she's done 50 years, for God's sake. Nobody can ask any more of that. And listen, Helen, look at that wee smile. God bless you, darling. I hope you have a great retirement. The trouble with actors is that we very, very rarely hang our boots up unless the bank balance is full, which it very seldom is. But also, we live for attention. And when you're in the most famous program on the planet, that attention 9 times out of 10 is an extremely good experience.
The People's Channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
You've got to stop doing that.
I quite enjoy it. Rum, bum, 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 bum.
She sings along with the theme music.
It's quite riveting.
You sing the theme tune, you write the theme tune.
Yeah, well, I don't write it, but I do like to sing along. I miss the old Great British Giveaway, the Greek music.
Oh, you liked that?
I did enjoy that, so... yeah, if you want to bring that back at any stage, let me know.
See what I have to put up with. Now, a lot of eyes are going to be on Scotland tonight, facing Germany in the opening match of the Euro 2024 in Munich.
Yes, Steve Clarke's side head into the tournament collecting just 1 win out of 9 games since securing qualification.
All right, well, our reporter Jack Carson is in Glasgow ahead of the big game tonight. Well, it might be quiet now, Jack. It's going to get a bit rowdy later.
Oh, certainly. There are going to be thousands of people on the streets tonight, in the pubs, in the bars, watching this game because it's such a huge moment for Scotland. It's, of course, their 2nd consecutive European Championship in a row. Steve Clarke is the only Scotland manager to have done that, of course. They ended a 23-year wait to go back to the European Championships back in 2021, where, of course, they got to play here at Hampton Park in some of their games. But now they're in Germany, they're in Munich. There's been thousands of the Tartan Army that have taken over Munich with their bagpipes, with their kilts, but the atmosphere back here at home is certainly going to be special as well. Of course, Scotland know that they are the underdogs going into this game tonight, but Andy Robertson, their captain, has made pretty clear in his pre-match press conference that they don't want to have any regrets. You know, what have they got to lose, being the lowest ranked side in their group, of course, with Germany, Switzerland and Hungary. They know they're going to be on the back foot, and they know that they had a disappointing last European Championships back in 2021, but they've got an exciting team. You know, Andy Robertson had an injury scare earlier this week in training. He's back fully fit. Steve Clarke says they're ready, they're raring to go, they've got nothing to lose, whereas Germany know that the pressure is on their shoulders, of course. They are the home side in this tournament. They haven't had success in a decade since they won the 2014 World Cup out in Brazil, so they know the pressure's on their shoulders, and in this first match today, Scotland will be looking to cause an upset. But how are those Scottish fans feeling? We spoke to a few of them to find out their thoughts.
I'm not the best when it comes to football, but I think Germany is a strong team, but I like to think Scotland does have a decent chance.
Aye, so what's Scotland's chances against Germany?
3-1 to Deutschland.
Do you not have any positivity? Where's the...
I can't see it, buddy. Because I will beat Gibraltar. Remember the morning?
But we were first to qualify.
There were 2-0 up there night, and it can pop back to 2 each. I think Clark's tactics got fun out now. He's playing class now, Tony.
Well, I think we've got to give it a go. We've got to give it our best shot and make sure that we can do it. I think that as long as we're cheering and giving it our all, we'll be all right. I mean, we have to band together, otherwise there's just no hope.
And but obviously, if it ever comes that England are playing against Scotland.
I think my train's late. I've got to go, guys.
Strong, mate. They've got us.
Yeah, see, that's how you do it. You're the first person.
Well, there you go. There's the thoughts of some people on the streets here in Glasgow and across Scotland. I mean, some of them not so optimistic. Some of them, you know, putting that message, they've got to have a go. I mean, they are the underdogs. They'll know. They've not beaten Germany since 1999. So today, surely, is the perfect day to do it at the first game of the European Championships. And maybe, just maybe, they could reach the knockout stages for the first time if they get a bit of momentum, get a good run of games. They only really need a win and a couple of draws, possibly, to make the knockouts. They'll know that very much they could have some luck on their side. They've got the players to do it. Scott McTominay, Andy Robertson, of course, chaired them as well. Could all make the difference tonight in Munich against Germany.
OK, Jack Carson in Glasgow, thank you very much indeed.
Jack's going to have a good night.
He's going to have a great time, as are many people in Glasgow. We hope, anyway.
I just hope we don't have to speak to Jack tomorrow morning, because I think he might be in a mess.
Really?
I think he might
he's
be a bit
utmost
messy.
professional. I think he's going to be just fine.
I think he might just have to keep going all night just to come through the other side.
Maybe.
Hair of the dog in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
I get
an orange juice or something.
I get that impression with Jack.
Do you?
Carson, yeah.
He's a dark horse.
I think he's going to be loving it.
OK, we'll see. We'll catch up with him tomorrow.
As will Paul Coyte. He's going to bring you all the sports news in a lot of detail, hopefully, in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 3 and 2 from west of Blackburn to the M61, causing queues. It's also very slow eastbound past the scene because of onlookers. Suffolk, the A11 is partly blocked southbound just before the Five Ways roundabout at Barton Mills, causing delays. There are delays of up to 25 minutes with some cancelled trains through Ely and Cambridgeshire because of a signalling problem. Trains have been stopped between Astrad and Rumney because of a fallen tree on the line. On the M4 in Newport, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 24 and 23A from the Caldra to the Magor services, causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 again today because of roadworks, and also in Kent, Old Thanet Way is closed between Greenhill Bridge Road and the A299 at the Herne Bay junction for an investigation. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Saturday, GB News invites you to witness the pageantry, the tradition and the unity. Join Ellie Costello and me, Andrew Pearce, in a celebration of His Majesty the King's official birthday. Trooping the Colour, Saturday at 10 a.m. on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. The time is 8:36. We're going through more sports now with Paul Coyte.
Oh, you sounded so excited the way you said that.
Jack Castle just filled us in great detail.
Jack's done everything.
Well, yeah.
So I don't really need to mention anything.
Oh, excellent.
As far as Scotland are concerned, but all we know is that it's 8 o'clock tonight. They're going to be playing Germany, and Jack didn't give a prediction. How do you think it's going to go?
I think Scotland are going to go 1-0.
Do you really?
And
then what do you think the final score's going to be? You think that's going to be what? The final score's going to be 1-0?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I say 3-0 to Germany.
You think 3-0 to
Sorry
Germany?
for the Scottish.
You know what?
Germany are quite good, aren't they?
They are good, but host nation opening night.
Well, it's home turf.
Also, I fear for Scotland, but you know what? You never know. I could use any cliche and under the sporting book or in the sporting book, but there we are. We'll see. So anyway, it's 8 o'clock tonight. England don't play until Sunday, so that's Serbia. So there's so many games. There's 51 games in all. Goes across a month. So it starts today, ends on the 14th of July, which is when the final's going to be, which will be England versus Germany. I've decided. I've been through. You can actually go on the UEFA website, and if you go on there, there's a predictor, and that's where you can just choose who you think is going to go through, and then there's a certain amount of third place finishes will also go through into the knockout, and then you can click on. So it came up with England Germany at the end.
Oh really?
And I've got England on penalties at the end of it.
Really?
But yeah, you can do that. So anyway, all gets underway today. Hungary, now these are the ones you can choose from over the weekend.
Yeah. Hungary
versus Switzerland, 2 p.m. Spain versus Croatia at 5 o'clock. Italy, Albania is at 8 o'clock. Sorry, Albanians. Poland versus Netherlands, 2 p.m. on Sunday. Slovenia versus Denmark. Yes,
that's
we
it.
fancy that
Denmark.
one. From Stuttgart, and then England versus Serbia from Gelsenkirchen. And that's
Gelsenkirchen.
Yes, and that's on Sunday. I've got some other stuff that's going on.
Please.
Cricket. Quick word on the cricket, because T20 in the World Cup, England need to be winning their games at the moment because it was rained off against Scotland and then they got beaten by Australia. Need to do well. Thrashed Oman, all out for 47 runs. I know, Oman, you don't think is like the ultimate cricket country,
47
do you?
runs.
Exactly. 47 runs off 13.2 overs. England scored 50 off 3.1 overs. So that is 19 balls. So it was all over. They then have to play again on Saturday. So England, to qualify for the Super 8s, they need to beat Namibia and have Australia beat Scotland, and then they will go to the Super 8s. And more Scottish sport going on.
Excellent.
US Open. Rory McIlroy is in the lead of the US Open. In the last 3 majors, it was bogey-free, by the way.
Right.
Bogey-free round, so he didn't go over par for any of the holes.
Right.
And the last time that Rory has done that, in the last 3 majors, 2011 US Open, he won it. 2012 PGA, he won it. And the 2014 Open, he won it as well. All bogey-free with the first round. So maybe... Oh, yeah, and also he broke up with his wife every time and got back together with her as well. Each time that happened too.
I was going to say, it's amazing what happens when you put the ring of power back on.
I know, isn't it? There you go. So it looks good for Rory, but there's another 3 rounds to go. 1,368 rounds of US Open golf that have been played. How many have been bogey-free? Can you remember?
7.
7.
Yay.
7 is correct.
Well, you said it was 5.
That's 7. No, it's 7.
Because I said 700, remember?
Yeah, do you remember?
So I was part of the way correct.
Hold on.
No, it's 5, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's 5. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done.
Thank you.
It's like working with Peter Alice here. You really are magnificent. And by the way, Brooks Koepka, another great major winner who's now with Live Golf, he was there yesterday. There's Brooks.
There he is.
But Brooks, I love this because he turned down media requests. Do you know the reason? Lack of creativity in interviews. He says, same questions every week. Like it's always, hey, Brooks, how do you think that first hole went? You think you could have got a bogey? You think you got a birdie? And he's fed up with him. So he says, lack of creativity with questions is kind of boring, so I left. So if I was there, Brooks, if a train left New York at this speed, who would get there first?
Yeah, I bet he wouldn't answer you.
Brooks, if you're an elephant, what club would you use? You know, that's what he wants, just something a little bit different from the same old nonsense. So poor old Brooks Koepka.
Right.
Are we done? Or we got time for a little Olympics?
No, I want a bit of Olympics from you.
OK.
We are done. We're out of time. I don't care.
OK, I don't care either. Let's go for it. The swimming events, by the way, in the Seine, possible that they may go ahead. it's a bit of a worry because of the rain, which then could bring E. coli. That huge thing there, that is it was like this great big thing that was made, underground storm water facility or great big thing. That's it. It's been built to prevent discharges into the river. I know it looks like a Roman ruin, doesn't it? I mean, but that's what it is. It all fill up with water.
It's a discharge holder.
It is a discharge holder. Everybody should have one. And finally, the Olympic flame. Where is it? I hear you ask.
Where is it, Paul?
I'll tell you where it is, Stephen and Ellie. It's in Tahiti. And you know what event is in Tahiti for the Olympics? Can you remember?
Volleyball.
No. Keep going.
Don't know.
It involves waves. It's big waves. Surfing. It's where the surfing will be. So that's where the surfing will be, and the Olympic flame currently in Tahiti, and then we'll be heading back to the main. There it is. Look at that. Is that beautiful? Well, it actually looks a bit overcast. Actually, it looks like here. So there's the Olympic flame.
She is.
Don't drop it overboard, whatever you do. It's a bit of not a very impressive flame, is it? In that lantern. But
Looks
there
like
we are.
she's arriving in the middle of the night.
I know. There we are. There we are. There's the flame.
There we are.
Don't set fire to the tree, whatever you do. The surfboards. Look at that. It's a wonderful, wonderful view.
There's somebody
Don't be doing it. Don't you behave yourself. Treat the flame there with a little bit more respect, please. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
That's the way you do it. Hold it aloft. And I'll keep you updated then next week on where it could possibly be until it arrives back on the mainland.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either.
Point.
I love the flame.
Yeah. Right, you can go now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers. That's next.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Angela, what's on the menu?
Well, the menu today really is the battle between King Charles and Prince Andrew about his home, a royal lodge. It's gone on for quite a long time now because increasingly the place looks very dilapidated. No paint, raw under the way that the whole thing's built, and it's. King Charles gives him £3 million a year to have safety, and also another million just to keep it going. And it costs about £400,000 a month to keep the place going.
Really?
So it is ridiculous that he's there. And I think it's like anybody. If you get to a certain age, his daughters don't stay there because they stay in London, and you get to age when you downgrade. And it's not a big deal, it's not hopeless, it's actually gives you a fresh feeling. And I think it's very silly that he won't do it, but he's determined not to, and the King is determined to, and it seems that if he doesn't listen and make all these decorations properly, that he's going to stop giving him the money, which would be very difficult indeed for him.
Because every 5 years, isn't he meant to paint the outside and all sorts of things?
And the Queen didn't give him much money in her will. It all goes to the heir. So Charles has got the money, and so you just wonder how he'll manage because he's only got, what he can do.
How he'll manage? He can move somewhere cheaper, like the rest of us. I mean, £400,000 a month.
Yeah.
You could go to Frogmore Cottage, which is the offer.
Yes, exactly. That's the offer. And it's all been very decorated. Apparently Meghan did it very nicely. It's much smaller, but it's also very carefully guarded. So he should be able to do that.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
mad about.
8:46. Let's see what's in the papers this morning for the last time with former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and political commentator Lynn May. Good to see you both this morning. Lynn, can we start with the European Courts of Justice in The Guardian?
Yes, so as we've been hearing throughout the news that there's now a political rise in voting intention towards the right leaning of parties, and maybe this is a part of it. So Hungary has been ordered to pay 200 million euros fine for its refusal to uphold the rights of asylum seekers. And, you know, they are just cracking down on how many people that they allow into their country. And I think when we see European countries being dictated to by the EU with regards to migrants coming in their countries, we're going to see a lot more of this, unfortunately.
What do you make of it, Mike?
I mean, effectively, the EU works on system of collective responsibility in every area, but also when it comes to asylum seekers. So obviously, most asylum seekers who arrive in the EU arrive in Italy or in Greece, and then 27 nations of the EU have said, you know, well, we will all take a quota of those asylum seekers so that it's fair across the board. Hungary's been refusing to do so, which of course adds extra pressure on all the other 26 and increases their costs and their need to, you know, take numbers of asylum seekers. So what the ECJ, so the European Court of Justice, has done is effectively just call Hungary out on this and say, you know, this goes against all the rules, goes against what you've signed up to, and it's fining this 200 million and €1 million euros a day as well, forcing Hungary to comply.
But then what do you think?
Right,
what do you think of if the people are saying, you know, we don't have the infrastructure, we're struggling ourselves, and it actually is more cost effective, which is not impossible, to pay this fine as opposed to allowing multitudes of asylum seekers in when they don't have the infrastructure. I mean, as we can see, even with you know, our boat migrants, we're having to pay on a daily basis millions for hotels. So when you look at, we're going to listen to our people, we're going to ensure that we don't accept loads of people in. Unfortunately, if they cannot accommodate that, we'd rather pay the fine. Do you understand?
Well,
why
Hungary
they
signed up to play by the rules. Hungary gets huge benefit, economic benefit, from being a member of the European Union, of course, as well as all the security benefits and all of that. So being a member of the EU has vastly increased people's standard of living in Hungary. So for them to turn around and say, well, we're not going to obey this rule because we don't fancy it, it's just completely untenable. But the problem here with paying huge hotel bills, which I think is 8 million a day or something paid by this government, is simply because they're refusing to process asylum claims. These people are here, they're just living in limbo, and the government's refusing to process the claims. That will change when Labour gets in. They'll start processing the claims.
They don't refuse to process the claims.
They are. They're saying, we will not process these claims. They think it's a deterrent for people. In fact, what it's doing is costing all of us millions of pounds a day, which is one of the reasons why our taxes are so high.
OK, Mike, let's stay with you, shall we, and look at NHS waiting lists. They've risen for the first time in 7 months.
They have. So, obviously, when Rishi Sunak announced, 18 months ago now, he was going to bring them down, I think they were at 7.5 million then, maybe. And they then went up to 7.8. They then came down slightly. So they've now gone up again. Rishi Sunak, of course, blames this on people on strike. But actually, since since they were last measured, there've been no strikes. But the big picture is the big rise in waiting times and waiting lists was pre-pandemic. So the government blames it on the pandemic. They blame it on strikes. But actually, the big rise was between 2010 and 2019. They have got up since then, but not by so much. This is long-term government failure, and actually a long-term decision to let waiting lists go up because they knew it was going to happen.
How do you think that they're going to change things around when Labour get in? How's Labour going to...
Well, they're going to vastly increase the number of appointments, so effectively they're going to use the staff that we've got and the resources that we've got better and more effectively.
Yeah, how will their staff even want to do that? This is the same staff that have been on strike for over a year.
They will want to do it. Well, Labour will, I'm sure, come to a settlement with the unions that have been on strike because we can't let the strikes
like
go on.
doctors are asking for? Do you reckon they'll go up to
They're not going to go anywhere near 35%. I mean, Keir Starmer said that very, very clearly the other day. I mean, that is clearly unaffordable. And I think that isn't... That's a negotiating position from the unions, you know, rather than what they're actually expecting. They're making the point that that's what their wages have gone down by under this government. I think we can all recognise had our wages gone down by 35%, we wouldn't be particularly pleased with that. But even the unions and the doctors and nurses themselves won't be expecting their wages will go by 35% under any government.
Well, we're talking to the Shadow Health Secretary in a couple of minutes, actually. So we'll try and get some answers from him on a lot of this. The EU is bowing to US pressure about Ukraine, says the Telegraph, Lynn.
Yeah, so European leaders bow to American pressure and agreed a $50 billion loan deal for Ukraine yesterday, using the proceeds from frozen Russian assets. Now, I find this quite interesting because even though we may take the stance that we support Ukraine, we have not actually officially said that we ourselves are in war against Russia.
No.
So for us to actually, without there being any hearing, court case, just to seize these assets that amount as well, you know, me personally, I think it's unethical. And Australia has actually agreed with my sentiment that, you know, there's no justification for just taking assets and using it willy-nilly.
But it's using the interest from these assets, isn't it?
Well, the point is that there's never been an agreement within a court of law to justify using these finances. And what's to stop then Russia from doing the same? And this is why we've seen they've already received sanctions. It's actually brought a lot of countries that are very resource-rich closer together. It's saying, you know, do what you want, but we're going to band together and we're not going to bow to the pressure of the West. We're going to stand up to the West. And I think countries are now looking at the West, seeing how they have used the dollar, specifically, obviously, America, as a weapon against other countries.
Ooh. Oh, that's a bit nuanced for me.
I mean, I'm completely in favour of this. I think this is brilliant. And obviously, Russia is the aggressor here. Lots of people have died.
Well,
lots of
using
infrastructure
Russian
has been
money
destroyed. It is, but as you said clearly, it's not spending these actual, you know, reserves. So what it's done is effectively said, well, Russia, can't have access to this money, but it's using the interest and it's generating a big loan that's going to help Ukraine. But we have to help Ukraine. I mean, one of the tragedies of the current situation is we, as the West, we're helping Ukraine enough to hold Russia back, but we're not helping Ukraine enough to help them win. Okay. This is a step towards us helping them enough to help them win.
Quite how we move from that, Mike, to deleted text on an iPhone.
I was just thinking that. You've got 45 seconds to tell us about this, Mike.
So this is a bizarre story. So there's a guy, clearly quite rich, who was sleeping around with prostitutes, and his wife found out because she found text messages which he's deleted off his phone on his computer, and the guy's blaming Apple for his subsequent divorce, which cost him £5 million apparently. So it's hard to tell from reading the article whether he's more bothered about losing his wife or he's more bothered about losing the money. But it's farcical that he's blaming Apple, who just run this, you know, have given him computers and a laptop and an iMac that work, for the fact that he's got divorced when clearly he was the one making his own life choices.
Well, there you go. Mike, Lynn, thank you both very much indeed. Been good to see you this morning. Be careful what you text, so I'll say.
Yeah. Should we take a look at the weather now with Alex Deacon?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer to average, but still a little below the average for this time of year. And certainly feeling cooler when the showers come along, and still plenty more of those showers to come well into the evening. Quite a wet day over the Northern Isles, more persistent rain here throughout with a brisk easterly wind. Across the mainland of Scotland, there will be some sunshine, but as I said, be prepared for showers. Not as wet as yesterday across Northern Ireland. Here too, some good spells of sunshine, but the showers will come and go, as they will frequently across England and Wales. And when the showers come, the temperatures will drop. Between them in the sunny spells, it shouldn't feel too bad, but certainly feeling fairly fresh this evening if you're heading out, and you will still need that umbrella handy. More showers to come and go through the overnight period. They're all milling around an area of low pressure, as you can kind of see here from the graphics. Again, it won't be as chilly as recent nights, and so temperatures in some towns and cities holding up in double figures. Into the weekend, it's little change. The low pressure is still dominating, which means, again, it'll be a case of some sunshine, but also be prepared for heavy showers. Some slow-moving downpours over northern England, parts of eastern Scotland in the south. A brisk wind tomorrow means the showers will zip through. So again, the weather chopping and changing pretty frequently. Temperatures, again, generally in the mid to high teens. And again, lots of showers to come on Sunday too.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Armagh. The A3 Northway in Portadown is partly blocked northbound by an accident at the A4 Corkrane Road junction causing queues. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junction 3 west of Blackburn and 2 for the M61 causing queues. Trains have been stopped northbound from Doncaster to Leeds because of a safety inspection of a train. Train services are suspended northbound from Ustrad Minute to Rumley because of a fallen tree on the line. On the M4 in Newport, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 24 and 23A from the Caldra to the Magor services causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues onto the M25 again today because of roadworks. And also in Kent, Old Thanet Way is closed between Greenhill Bridge Road and the Herne Bay junction for an investigation. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock, Friday the 14th of June. Today, a blow to Rishi Sunak as Reform overtake the Tories in an opinion poll for the first time. Farage declares his party the official opposition.
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
Penny Mordaunt, Angela Rayner and Nigel Farage clash in a 7-way showdown over immigration, the NHS and tax.
Well, Penny Mordaunt dubs Labour's plan to launch a tax raid on private schools as crazy, claiming it will push more children into the state system.
Pubs and breweries across the country demand an immediate cut in beer duty, as it's a staggering 3 times the European average.
And secrets of the deep revealed. We'll be speaking to one of the people who've discovered a shipwreck from Sir Ernest Shackleton's last ship, 62 years after it sank.
It's not quite as chilly out there this morning. It will be a day where you'll need your umbrella handy, but you'll also need some sunglasses nearby as well. Yes, a mixture of sunshine and heavy showers. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Right, let's kick off with that poll, because it was really quite something last night. A YouGov poll that, in Nigel Farage's words, says Reform UK are the official opposition after they overtook the Conservatives for the first time.
Yes, in that poll for The Times, Reform gained 2 points to reach 19%. Tories sit unchanged at 18%, and Labour saw a slight drop in support down to 37%. Well, earlier we got the reaction of Reform UK chairman Richard Tice.
With that poll, which reflects what we're hearing up and down the country as our candidates are campaigning. Something's happening out there. It's quite extraordinary. So we were hoping that we would get to equality and then what they call crossover in the polls. And of course, this is the Rolls Royce of pollsters. It's not some Mickey Mouse pollster that no one's heard of. And the other polls are beginning to catch up. The momentum is with us. Something is definitely happening out there. Word is spreading. And voters actually, I think, are just thrilled that there's a serious, alternative, credible option putting forward different policies about how you make work pay, how you get people off benefits, how you can lift the income tax threshold to £20,000 from £12,500, how you can get to zero waiting lists on healthcare and reform the way we do healthcare still free at the point of delivery, and how you freeze immigration in order to allow the country to catch up. These are the things that people want to talk about, and they're delighted when we arrive on the doorstep and say, have we got news for you?
Well, our political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Olivia. What do you make of this poll?
Well, it was fantastic news for the Reform Party, and the timing couldn't have been better. It was about half an hour before that seven-way leaders debate started last night that this poll dropped. Now, how important is it? Well, in terms of morale for the Conservative Party, it is pretty catastrophic. Everything we're hearing out of the CCHQ headquarters is that already everyone is pretty despairing and despondent about the Conservatives' hopes in this election. But the fact that Reform have now leapfrogged the Conservatives, particularly given that the Conservatives haven't had a particularly terrible few days. I mean, since D-Day, there was hope that they might be recovering a little bit with their kitchen sink, as people are calling it, manifestos, or throwing everything at the manifesto. They're hovering around 18 points. Reform have now leapfrogged them to 19. It is very unlikely that Reform polling will actually convert into seats in the House of Commons. The Reform Party is still a very new party, and obviously this election was called sort of 6 months earlier than they were expecting, and so they don't really have the kind of campaigning infrastructure in place to be able to focus on specific seats. So it's quite likely that what will happen is Reform might pick up 1 or 2 seats. It looks likely that Farage will win Clacton, and it could be that Tice manages to win Skegness as well, but it doesn't look as though it's going to convert into a mass number of seats. But that could be just as damaging for the Conservatives, because of course what we could see happening is that the vote on the right ends up splitting, and the Conservatives end up in territory where they have, the nightmare scenario for them, where they have something like fewer than 100 seats. It's also really strong material for Nigel Farage, and it was gold dust yesterday what he was able to say. Obviously, the main campaigning line from the Conservatives about Reform is don't vote for Reform, because a vote for anyone but the Conservative candidate ends up being a vote for Labour. Nigel Farage managed to turn that argument on its head yesterday when Penny Mordaunt said that a vote for Reform is a Labour enabler. He was able to say, well, actually, we're ahead of you in the polls, so you could argue that a vote for Conservatives is a vote for Labour. It'll be really interesting to see how this dynamic plays out over the next few weeks, and I think also we should keep an eye on talk of a Reform Conservative pact. Nigel Farage has already said that he would be willing to lead a Conservative Reform amalgamation after the election. Are Conservative MPs interested in that? I think some of them certainly are.
It's interesting, though. I mean, talking to Richard Tice earlier on, I mean, Reform, if they're going to adopt this position of second place, they're going to have to be prepared for a lot more scrutiny of, well, they don't have a manifesto, do they? They have a contract that they're launching on Monday. But they've got to be prepared for a magnifying glass to be passed over that.
Well, they absolutely will. And if you look at their actual policies that they've laid out so far, they are pretty radical. For example, they would like to see, they will plan to see the tax threshold at which you start paying income tax raised from £12,500 to £20,000. That threshold has been played around with over the past few decades, but it's only moved by sort of 500 quid here or there. This would be an enormous policy and would, end up with a large proportion of the UK population not paying any income tax at all. What sort of knock-on effect could that have? You could end up in a situation where people who aren't paying tax at all are much more willing to see other people's money spent, for example. That's the argument that Miriam Cates made the other day. She said that she does like Nigel Farage, but she worries about the idea of lots and lots of people not paying any tax at all because they don't have a stake in society. They don't have a stake in how the government is spending money. I think that's one question which will be explored over the next few weeks. And also, most importantly, of course, whether that tax policy and whether some of their other quite expensive policies are realistic at all financially.
Olivia, it's really interesting. After the Labour manifesto launch yesterday, most of the papers today actually asking very serious questions now about how the Labour Party are going to pay for it. There's suggestions here of cuts to public services and hikes in taxes.
Well, absolutely. The Labour Party policy from the beginning of the election all the way through to now has basically been to say as little as they possibly can. They know that Keir Starmer's route to number 10 is pretty clear, and the last thing they wanted to do in their manifesto is upset the apple cart by announcing some new policy or some new spending commitment which would, or taxation policy, which could end up ruining things for them. But it does mean that there are a lot of unanswered questions. The Labour Party has said time and again that it will not be raising the three main taxes on working people, so VAT, income tax or national insurance, but it does have quite a lot of expensive plans, not least for education and childcare. How is that going to be paid for? Well, Keir Starmer very carefully did not rule out raising things like council tax and capital gains tax, but even so, there are some economists who say that even if you raise those by quite a considerable amount, there would still be a shortfall. So will public spending end up being cut? Keir Starmer has obviously tried to rule out again and again the idea that the Labour Party is a sort of austerity painted red, as Plaid Cymru called it yesterday. But there are those on the left of the Labour Party who are very worried indeed about the prospect of public spending being cut. It'll be interesting to see whether Keir Starmer can get away for the next 3 weeks without explaining in more detail how his policies are going to be paid for and whether taxes will rise or public spending will fall.
OK, Olivia, thanks very much indeed. You may have noticed Olivia mentioned Nigel Farage standing in the Clacton constituency. So I just want to run you through all the people standing there. We have Yovan Owusu-Nepal for the Labour Party, Giles Watling for the Conservatives, Matthew Bensalem for the Lib Dems, Nigel Farage for Reform UK, Natasha Osborne for the Green Party, Craig Jameson for the Climate Party, Tony Mack, who's an independent, Tesos Papanastasiou for the Heritage Party, and Andrew Pemberton for UKIP.
Well, that poll we were just talking about made for an interesting opening bout to last night's election debate on ITV, where 7 parties competed to win your vote.
Well, the Labour deputy leader, Angela Rayner, was asked if she would rejoin the EU.
If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Well, the Liberal Democrats have put fixing the NHS and social care at the heart of their policies.
Our manifesto is a manifesto to save the NHS and social care. We're pledging £9 billion to invest upstream. We see on the TV all these disastrous pictures of people dying in the back of ambulances, suffering the indignity of corridor care because they can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, and that's what we want to fix.
The SNP's Stephen Flynn has criticised Labour's hesitation over the crisis in Gaza.
It took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, Will you end arms sales to Israel?
But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Thank you.
Well, you may remember from the previous seven-way debate that Plaid Cymru leader wasn't impressed with the main party's ambitions, and it seems nothing has changed.
Election, you'll hear me talking a lot about ambition. Where is the ambition from either of the Westminster main parties to invest in allowing us in Wales to make the most of our natural resources through devolving the Crown Estate, allowing us to invest in transport and connectivity through giving us the billions we're owed as a result of HS2 rail in England? That's the ambition that we need. We're not hearing it from the Conservatives, and I regret we're not hearing it from...
Nigel.
Well, the Green Party's joint leader, I should say, Carla Denyer, says immigration isn't a problem for the UK. She says it's the government's failure to invest that causes the issues.
I think it's shameful when some politicians scapegoat the people who become our neighbours, our friends, our colleagues, to distract from their chronic underinvestment in public services. The solution isn't scapegoating or pulling up the drawbridge. The solution is investing in our communities to make sure everyone has access to the services they need.
And seeing his party surge in the polls, Reform UK's Nigel Farage took the Tories to task over their immigration promises.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
That's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
Didn't go down well with the studio audience, that, did it? Right, let's talk to the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who joins us now. Good to see you.
Morning.
Can we kick off by... We had the manifesto launch yesterday, and we've been told all the way through this is fully costed. Everything is fully costed. Only after reading it, the Institute for Fiscal Studies have said today that you talk of delivering actual change, but your manifesto offers no indication that there is a plan for where this money will come from.
Oh, I'm sure everyone's there with their manifestos over their cornflakes. Page 127, we spell out how we're raising money and where we're investing it. And there's an underlying argument as well, and an honesty that we have shown for some time now, which is the country's finances are in a terrible state. So the promises that are in our manifesto are promises we can keep and the country can afford. But there will be lots of things that people wanted us to do that are not in our manifesto because we know the money isn't there and we've got to get our economy back to growth. And that's Labour's central economic argument. We know that people are already paying through the nose in higher taxes because we've got a low growth economy, we've got a higher tax economy. And because people are struggling, we're not going to put up income tax, national insurance or VAT. We know we can't tax and spend our way out of this crisis. We're going to go for growth with a serious plan of economic stability, a serious industrial strategy, investment and economic reform. And if the economy had grown under this government at the same rate it grew under the last Labour government, there'd be tens of billions of pounds available to either put back in people's pockets or to invest in our services without having to increase taxes. So we're paying a very high price for the economic failure of the past. We need to get Britain back to growth, and that's Labour's plan.
How are you going to promote growth, though? Because Penny Mordaunt last night pointing to a £38.5 billion black hole in Labour's manifesto, and in the Mail and the Express today, both accusing Labour of an £8.5 billion tax trap in this manifesto.
Two things. Firstly, I think Penny's got some brass neck, actually, given that her manifesto earlier this week contains tens of billions of pounds of unfunded tax and spending decisions. That's tens of billions of pounds worth of borrowing. We've seen this movie before. This is Liz Truss's mini budget on steroids. It's an even bigger sum than she was proposing. That would see the economy tank, interest rates rise and people paying through the nose again. We don't want to give the matches back to the arsonists on that front. Secondly, in terms of the criticism we've had from the Mail and the Express today, we have said for some time now that there are good things that need to be done, like cutting NHS waiting lists or putting neighbourhood police back on our streets, or closing the vacancies in our schools. That means kids are being taught subjects like maths without a qualified teacher. And to fund those things, we're making some fairer choices. We're going to clamp down on tax avoidance, close the remaining non-dom loopholes, a real windfall tax on big oil and gas giants. So we have raised some money through fairer choices. What we're not going to do is put up income tax, national insurance or VAT, because we know that working people have been the first and last resort of the Tories, and we're not going to make that mistake because we know that people genuinely can't afford it right now.
Yeah, but the problem is, and we've heard it from Keir Starmer a lot, haven't we, over the last few days, no increase on taxes for working people. Well, I mean, there's a caveat in there, because it doesn't answer the question that he's been asked about council tax. It doesn't ask about wealth taxes and capital gains tax. It doesn't answer questions about the tax on pensions. Now, admittedly, to be totally fair to you, no one can actually expect you to outline exactly what you would do over a 5-year parliamentary term. However, some honesty, some transparency to say, well, these are things we are going to have to consider or may consider over the next few years. Well, that would be being honest with us, wouldn't it?
The honesty is in our manifesto in terms of how we're raising money to invest in public services and where the money is going. We've spelled that out very clearly. And people can judge Rachel Reeves on her record now as Shadow Chancellor. She has argued consistently that the tax burden in this country is too high. When we've had newspapers like The Sun running very effective campaigns on fuel duty, for example, Rachel Reeves has supported them because she knows that people are feeling the pinch at the pumps. I'm a motorist. She's a motorist. We know that. We feel it ourselves. I think when it comes to the argument that Rachel Reeves is making with Keir Starmer, what they're saying is, look, we can't tax and spend our way out of this crisis as a country. We've got to get back to growth. That means having a serious industrial strategy. It means investing in Britain's energy infrastructure and unlocking private sector investment alongside public sector investment, delivering the planning reform that we need so that we can get the new homes our country needs, the new energy infrastructure, the new lab space for our life sciences and medtech sectors. And if I'm the health secretary and I'm able to deliver those 40,000 extra appointments every week and double the number of diagnostic scanners and 8,500 extra mental health staff to cut the more than 1 million people waiting for mental health treatment, not only are we going to be able to get people back to health, in lots of those cases, that means people back to work. So we've currently got 3 million people who are both off sick and off work in our country. Not their fault, they can't get the treatment. But if we get people off waiting lists, not only will we be getting them back to health, we'll also be getting them back to work. That will help drive economic growth.
How are you going to add 40,000 more appointments every single week with the same exhausted, burnt out workforce that has been on strike for over a year, if we're talking about junior doctors?
So the good news is that we're taking an approach which is tried and tested and proven at a small number of hospitals, including the hospital I can see out of my office window in Westminster, Guy's and St Thomas's, where by paying staff to do clinics, in their case, on a Saturday, they've been able to do as many procedures in one day as they would normally do in an entire week. And we've put aside £1 billion directly into the pockets of NHS staff to fund that extra capacity. No one's going to be forced to do it, but what we've seen in the hospitals where this is working is people do want to do it, and they're proud of the difference they're making on cutting waiting lists. So I'm confident we'll be able to deliver that and deliver that at pace. We're also going to double the number of diagnostic scanners, because about 1.6 million people are waiting for diagnostic tests and scans. So if we can get people diagnosed faster, we can treat them faster, better for them, also less expensive for the taxpayer. And also there will be a lot of people waiting anxiously for diagnostic tests and scans who will ultimately receive some good news, some reassuring news. And we want to give people that reassurance sooner rather than later, because often, and I know this as a cancer survivor myself, when you're waiting for a scan, when you're waiting for your scan results, that is a hugely anxious period. So the sooner we can get people diagnosed, we can either give them the reassurance they're all right and to get on with things, burden-free, stress-free, or we can get them onto treatment pathways much sooner too.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have seen one of the first questions last night from the audience was about the NHS and what needs to be done with the NHS. 7.57 million on the waiting list now, and you're talking about these things which are more than tinkering round the edges. But my question to you would be: have we reached a point, and are you a party who could do it in terms of radical change to the NHS? Because isn't that what this needs now?
I think we're the only party that's capable of reforming the NHS to make it fit for the future. When I look at other countries and why they're doing so much better than us, it's because we spend huge amounts on our hospital care, but when it comes to primary care, so things like getting a GP, mental health, community services, diagnostics, which I've mentioned, we're either near the bottom, at the bottom, or seriously lagging behind. And so what we're setting out is a 10-year plan, not just for investment, but for reform, to make sure that we have more care available to people closer to home, a neighbourhood health service as much as a national health service, which means we can diagnose earlier, treat faster, and better for patients, more effective use of taxpayers' money. And we're also going to shift the focus to preventing ill health as well. We've got a growing ageing society. We've got rising chronic disease and things like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, which are entirely preventable. So we've got to have the right public health measures in place too. So we've got a serious plan to do that. It's a serious plan for investment and reform. And people can judge us on our record. When we were last in government, we delivered the shortest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction in history. We did it before. With your support, we can do it again.
Just got to clarify, be careful when you're talking about diabetes that you're talking about type 2 and type 1 on that, otherwise you'll upset those type 1s of us out there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Stephen. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Wes Streeting, just before we let you go, I wanted to ask your response to the YouGov poll last night that placed reform ahead of the Conservatives. You heard Nigel Farage saying last night that Reform UK is now the opposition to Labour in this country.
In that clip you showed, I thought, well, for once I agree with Nigel Farage. Why on earth would you trust a party and its promises when they've had those promises in 4 manifestos now and broken them every time? Look, with Nigel Farage, I'd just say 2 things about Nigel Farage and reform. Firstly, this is another chapter in the Conservative Party's psychodrama. We've got Conservative candidates like Andrea Jenkins that have got Nigel on her leaflets rather than her own leader. And I just think if the Tories get back in, this is the next chapter of that story, the chaos, the division. Do they merge with reform? Is Nigel their next leader or not? And I think that's chaos that we don't need anywhere near government. And the second thing I'd say is on Nigel Farage, I don't underestimate him as a campaigner. We have sometimes learned to our cost, being on the losing side to Nigel Farage. He's a formidable campaigner. But what Nigel Farage has never been tested on is actually delivering the change he says he wants to bring about. So we're going to take him on the arguments. We're going to take him on the issues. I think it's appalling, actually, the way in which he's had things pelted at him during this election campaign. He's got every right to be heard. And we're going to take him on the arguments. And if he's elected to Parliament, and that's a big if, he's not been so far, we'll take him on in the Commons chamber. But otherwise, whether it's in Clacton or across the rest of the country, people have got good Labour candidates who, if we get elected, can deliver the change, the practical, real change our country's crying out for.
OK. Shadow Health and Social Care Secretary Wes Streeting, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, good to see you this morning. It's all down to trust, isn't it? Who do you trust? Mm-hmm. When it comes, particularly when it comes to the finances of all of that. I do just want. I don't know if you've got my computer's logged out, so I can't. Where's the? I need the list. Here we go. Because again, we mentioned Clacton, so this is all about election rules when it comes to broadcasting. I just want to make sure that you are aware, if you've just joined us, that in Clacton there are various candidates, including Jovan. Oh, it's gone there. So we've got Matthew Bensalem for the Lib Dems, Nigel Farage for Reform UK, Craig Jameson for the Climate Party, Tony Mack, who's an independent.
Natasha Osborne from the Green Party, Jovan Nepal Awusu for the Labour Party, Tassos Papanastio from the Heritage Party, Andrew Pemberton, UKIP, and Giles Francis Watling for the Conservative Party.
There you go. Got to run through all of those for you. Right now, should we change tack a little bit and just remind you that you have got a chance to win £15,000 in cash and some summer treats in our latest Great British giveaway. Here are the details.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. That's it from us today, isn't it? You're back tomorrow?
I'm back tomorrow. You're covering Trooping the Colour tomorrow, so it's going to be a good day.
Yes, up.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update this morning from the Met Office here on GB News. It's a day for having the umbrella handy, but also having the sunglasses never too far away. A mixture of sunshine and showers. One of those days where the weather's chopping and changing every 5 minutes. Some places starting off fine this morning, but the showers will get going from late morning onwards right up and down the land. Heavy showers moving through pretty smartly in the south with a fairly brisk winds, but some thunderstorms are possible. Some decent spells of sunshine between the showers, particularly further north. And when the sun's out, well, it'll feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures getting closer